If you're planning to speak this evening, we do request that you fill in one of the speaker cards. That's so we can get the spelling of your name right. And it helps the person who does the minutes. So we really appreciate that. And you can just hand those in at the corner here at any time.
These chairs are never right.
Is there a good supply of speaker cards? We're all out. Okay. Apparently we're out of speaker cards, but so speak your name carefully when you come up. Oh, there are more over there? Okay, so there are more in the corner in green. Yeah, let's get started. Yeah. Okay, we'll get started. Good evening. Jeff, would you call roll?
Commissioner Chomsky.
Present.
Commissioner McQuaid.
Present.
Commissioner Reeves.
Present.
And Vice Chair McCroskey.
Here.
And Chair Jalvindal is out of town.
So we have the minutes before us from May 22nd. Are there any comments on the minutes?
I have a general comment, not specifically to these minutes, but is there, and Jeff, I guess maybe you could relay this comment. Is there any way that we can get the minutes the following month? I mean, is there anything we can do to help that process? Because I find that in 2 months, I don't remember the details as well as I'd like, and I feel like I'm just kind of looking at big picture and maybe missing something that should be corrected. So if there's any way that we could help expedite that, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, we will try to do that. Thank you.
All right. No. Can I get a motion on the minutes?
I'll move to approve for the May 22nd minutes.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Carries unanimously. So, Jeff, it was the minutes were proposed by McQuaid and seconded by Chomsky.
Thank you for helping out. Appreciate that.
We'll get it all done. We've come to the portion of our meeting which is for public comment, and this is for public comment on things that are not otherwise on the agenda. So there will be time for public comment for each agenda item as it comes up. So is there public comment for things that are not on our agenda this evening? If so, please come forward. Seeing none, I'm going to move on to our police report.
Thanks, Eleanor.
Thank you. Good evening. Our report for June, we had 12 collisions, 9 non-injury, 2 injury collisions. We had 6 hit and runs. 3 of the collisions occurred on Marin, 1 near a school. We issued approximately 109 moving citations, made approximately 11 DUI arrests. And then last month, we just received word from the Office of Traffic and Safety that we received a $69,000 grant for traffic enforcement to help reduce collisions. And so it's going to cover various, DUI enforcement, stop sign enforcement, speed enforcement. That's it.
And you've got another enforcement day coming up?
Yes, I think it's on
Monday?
Monday, yeah, the 28th, I believe. I think it's in the morning.
And that one's focused on?
That kind of the totality of other stop signs, speed. It's not like in the past we've done like texting and seatbelts. This will cover those as well as speeding, stop sign violations, unsafe lane changes.
Okay. Any questions from the commission?
So a $69,000 grant, how long does that?
It's a
One-
one,
does the
one
one-
year period, yes. Yes, is my understanding. So we'll do special operations, bringing in people on overtime to do those enforcements.
Great.
Right?
Thank you for that information.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Moving right along, let's go to item number 6A, the Creekside Walk Condominium Project in El Cerrito and potential impact on Albany.
Before I start, would people like me to turn the fans up to a higher speed? Is it getting muggy in here? Makes a little noise, so I apologize, but let's give it a try. Okay. So what I'd like to do this evening for the commission and members of the public is give you a brief overview of the City of Albany's understanding of the status of the El Cerrito Plaza Condominium Project, answer any questions from the commission, and continue to keep you up to date with what's going on. To begin with, just to give you an orientation to the project, I've got a few graphics I want to put up on the screen. This is the location, and just so everybody gets oriented, the north is to the left of the screen on all these images I'll be showing. So the portion of the building on the left side of the screen here, that's Lucky's. This is obviously the El Cerrito Plaza area. This outline in white is roughly the location of the project. And, oh, there we go. Cerrito Creek runs along here, and that also is the city limit line between the cities of El Cerrito and Albany. And then, whoops, jumping ahead, just to finish get everybody oriented, Evelyn, losing my mouse sometimes. Well, Evelyn is the street running on the screen left to right, and then Talbot is at the bottom of the page. This is one of a typical elevation drawings of the project, just to give you an idea of the scale of it. 128 units of condominiums. This is a typical floor plan as it was approved by the City of El Cerrito. And using the arrow here, I'm just going to kind of highlight the circulation system because I think that's what most people are interested in talking about. Sorry, my mouse is disappearing. I think what I'd like to do is go grab a laser pointer. Well, the laser pointer walked off. Basically, you're just going to have to follow with me as I try to verbally describe. From the right-hand side of the screen, vehicles on Evelyn would come in. Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is the vehicle entrance from Evelyn. On the next screen, you'll be able to see a little bit better exactly where the driveway is, but basically, motorists would be able to enter the project about there. They also can circle the project and come in, and there'll be another driveway right there. If you look real carefully, there's a stop sign, stop written on the pavement there. And then circle all the way around to the other side of the project. The BART tracks are at the top of the screen. Why don't you let me get through the presentation, and then I'll respond to questions from the commission first. So again, here's Evelyn. The driveway entrance is right here, and so a resident coming into the condos could enter here and park, or alternatively come in here and park. And then a third driveway is over here behind the stores. The project has been approved by the city of El Cerrito. It was approved in 2007. It ran through its course. There was an appeal filed. El Cerrito upheld the approval, denied the appeal, and upheld the approval. So at this point, the key thing from the city of Albany's perspective is ensuring that the project complies with the conditions of approval from that 2007. Legally, it's very difficult for either the city of Albany, private citizens, or the city of El Cerrito, for that matter, to reverse the approval of a project like this, that it has vested approvals. They have a legal right to construct the project. This is one of a series of conditions of approval. It's the one that's most important to the issue of greatest concern to people in Albany. And it, in a nutshell, requires that the applicant work with the owner of El Cerrito Plaza Regency Centers to prepare, using their words, a comprehensive traffic and circulation study for the project and the entire El Cerrito Plaza, and to implement the improvements identified in the study. I'm kind of paraphrasing this long paragraph. I've had a number of conversations with my colleagues, the city of El Cerrito, regarding this condition of approval. I've also had a conversation with the developer of the project, and they understand clearly what our expectations are, which would be that this condition of approval be complied with. I have respect for my colleagues in El Cerrito. They're new to the job there, and I believe that they will do their best to comply with this condition of approval. So right now we're waiting for this work to be undertaken, and we would, of course, engage with them at every step of the process that we're given an opportunity to do so, and hope to ensure that through this condition of approval, a reasonable route through the El Cerrito Plaza parking lot, which right now is a tangled mess, can give people vehicle travelers a good route to get to the project, and a good alternative to using Albany residential streets to get to the project. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions from the commission.
So when might the study be either done or finished, or?
I don't, they have not given me that information.
And can they start building without the study being completed?
This condition of approval says they cannot do that.
Okay.
And we will monitor this to make sure that that happens. And if suddenly the project starts construction, that would be extraordinarily disappointing based on the conversations I've had, but also would be something that we would immediately take the highest levels.
So what firm would carry out the study?
There's some language in here. The second to last sentence, the city shall select the consultant that will prepare the study. There was, incidentally, a study prepared in 2010, I believe, that the city is not relying on. I'd have to look and see what the name of the consultant to prepare that study, but the city staff acknowledged that didn't really address the circulation issues that were triggered by this project. They talked about working on around the Starbucks and the traffic circle and things like that. That wasn't applicable really to the main issue that we have here.
So do we have any influence on the selection of the consultant, or any recourse if we feel that there are errors in the resulting study?
The only recourse would be legal action.
The study will be public or will be shared with us? How does it work?
anything like this in any municipal government would be public information. There's nothing secret about a traffic study. If we get our hands on it, we'll make it public as quickly as we can.
Okay.
So the study includes both an analysis and a recommendation, is that right?
Oh, I hope so.
And whatever they recommend is what this condition says they have to build. Okay.
How long does the study take? Do you have any idea?
For something like this, I would think it wouldn't take long, a few weeks, maybe a month or so. It's not a lot of data collection. It's much more just trying to figure out the geometry of the parking lots and how islands could be, or restriping could occur to create a better route, basically around the bottleneck that seems to happen around the entrance to Trader Joe's. Thank you.
Would this study consider the Albany streets at all?
I would not expect them to do that. In terms of what happens with the Albany streets, if this plays out as I expect it to do, we will be monitoring the volumes and safety issues and speeds on Albany streets before the project is occupied and then after the project is occupied. And as we see problems emerging, we'll start to troubleshoot and problem solve those situations like we normally do. We'd probably start with striping and signage and relatively low-cost traffic calming that you frequently deal with on other city streets. And if that addresses the problem and reduces the safety issues and speeds and volumes, great. If it doesn't, we progress along. Ultimately, hopefully we don't need to do it, but if we need to close streets in order to address the safety issues, we would certainly begin that process. That's a pretty substantive decision. It's not something that the commission can just do. We'd have to do environmental review. There would be consequences of the traffic moving other places that we'd have to deal with. But we certainly can do that, and we would expect to do that if the volumes get as significant as I think some people are worried they might.
So do we don't have a current baseline testing of all the,
No, not a recent one and not something that was done for this project right now. There was a study in 2010 by Fair and Pierce that I think we hired. I don't know if they have, but it's 2010. It's 4 years ago. So I would say that we will have to test the speeds and volumes more recently. I mean, in order to have a pre and post project evaluation.
and testing now wouldn't be very representative of the load that happens during the school year?
We will have to test in September.
Yeah.
September.
If we test in September and find that there's significant issues right now, could we begin mitigation before the project? Mitigation being signage, striping?
As we normally do with the other streets, yes.
Right, okay.
But, excuse me, the environmental impact report should have some projections of increased traffic. Do they have it? I mean, even if it's all in 2007, maybe we can extrapolate.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked at the study of the EIR in detail. I think we would really need to start with actual real data and find the real problems and focus on it from that perspective of what's really happening on the ground rather than what was probably now a 9-year-old traffic analysis. I think we'd be much better off just dealing with the real problem.
I was thinking just to extrapolate the projections.
So do you know, or is this something we have to figure out, how different is my understanding that El Cerrito's doing this, or trying to build out with the idea of enhancing their commute, other kinds of transit other than cars. They're trying to have these kind of developments located near mass transit, and as a result, not having as much parking as they normally do. Is that our understanding of this project? The required parking spaces, because they're not very many.
I'd have to look and to see what the parking ratio on this particular project is. I don't recall. But you're right, there's a statewide push, and certainly Bay Area-wide push for transit-oriented, higher-density development projects, and this is a perfect example of the types of projects that from a regional perspective, help encourage people to use transit and overall, region-wide, reduce traffic volumes, but they do have these kinds of projects can have isolated impacts on particular neighborhoods, and that's the situation that we find ourselves in.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission?
Do we know what the walking distance is from the project to the BART station for, like, to evaluate how strongly it functions as a transit-oriented development?
Yeah, it's certainly within a half a mile. I can pull up Google Earth.
Less than 10 minutes.
Oops. So 1,300 feet, which is,
About a quarter mile.
Yeah.
Okay. And do we know what the connection, well, like what the pedestrian flow is from the individual units in the project to the BART station? Is it via the Ohlone Greenway, or?
I would expect that would be the most pleasant way to get there, but
And do we have a picture of how the units in the project will be connected to the Ohlone Greenway for pedestrians?
I'd have to go back to look at the floor plan here a little bit, or maybe this is. It looks like there would be. This is a walkway there, and then there's a ramp up to the greenway there,
Thanks.
and also on the creek side.
Yeah, Creekside, yeah.
There it looks like a ramp up that way.
Yeah, they're stating 128 dwelling units with 192 parking spaces. So I don't know what that ratio is.
A little less than 1.5
1.5.
per unit, which is, it doesn't comply with Albany's parking standards, but it's within the range of normal for a project like this in most municipalities.
We're going to take comments from the public next.
Up to the
Do
commission.
you have a quick answer? Yeah.
Hi there. Thank you for letting me come up. And so I was involved in looking at the design and advocating various changes back in, I think, 2004. My name is Preston Jordan. So what the design showed at that time, and I don't know if it's changed or not. I mean, the footprint's the same, but the area behind the two buildings or between the two buildings and the greenway, the north end started at parking lot level, so the current grade, and then it ramped up because it's a fire lane. It ramped up from there to more the greenway level, or the first floor level, if you will, because this is a podium construction. So it's a garage on the bottom level, but the backside of the garage of the southern building is backing up against a retaining wall. And that fire lane comes up to the level of the first floor units, if you will. And so one of the things we advocated for was originally the way the buildings were designed, there was no connection between the units and the greenway or the units and the Cerrito Creek Trail. All the units had entrances internally. And so one of the design changes we advocated successfully was that they make that connection. And so now, at least for the southern building, there are, last design I saw, that ground floor units had their entries directly onto the greenway, and the ground floor units had, I think, stairway entries down to the Cerrito Creek Trail that's proposed. All the rest of the units are internal entries to the building.
Thank you.
So for public comment, if I could suggest, if it's the will of the commission, that if people have questions, maybe we'll kind of catalog all those, and at the end of public comment, kind of get them organized and respond all at once, if that's acceptable to the commission, rather than kind of having a dialogue back and forth with each individual speaker.
I think that makes sense. And you're going to take care of the timer? Okay. So how many people wish to speak to this issue? Okay. Well, so we'll ask you to form a line over here, and we'll limit you to about 3 minutes or up to 3 minutes. Do you want to call names, or should we just have a line for them?
Why don't we call the names that we have, and then for those that didn't get a chance to do a speaker card, we'll...
Okay.
John Duggar, Jean Levine. Can we just call?
Just call 2 or 3 at a time, I think.
Stuart Gooderman. And we're going to call names later after they speak.
My name's John Duggar. I'm a tenant at 410 Evelyn Avenue. I'm the manager, and I represent as well Trevor Properties, the property owners of the unit. We have 48 people living in our building. We have 12 units, so 12 units containing 48 people. We are next to the professional building, so we'll be facing, we're right here on the corner, so we'll see this entire development. Forgive me for saying this, but it seems that a lot of the issues that have been raised are concerning the tenants of the development, what they will have, what their walk is, how many parking spaces they have. And I think that perhaps the feeling on the ground is that we are worried about how it's going to impact the Albany people, not the El Cerrito people who will be coming in, not the future development tenants, but the present Albany tenants. And we have already, say, on Albany, on Evelyn Avenue, we have issues of parking. We have the idea, I'm shocked at the way that Evelyn Avenue is completely blocked off, as it were. And even though there might be some kind of road veering around it, we have a lot of service vehicles going down there. And we have issues of service vehicles, we have rubbish collection, we have emergency vehicles, we have delivery vehicles, we have moving vehicles, and we have parking, all right? So these are going to be major issues. And so I think on the ground, we feel that there's going to be an increase in the future tenants and our future neighbors. 1.5 parking spaces per unit means there's going to be a lot of 1/2 cars that are going to be parked along our streets, all right? And this means that we could very easily be pushed off by volume in what is already a problematic parking situation. Talbot is not so bad, but on Evelyn Avenue, we have several large developments. I know that there's a large development across from us, down the whole side. So we already have more cars, and a lot of them have internal parking, a lot of them don't. So I think some of our issues are density. I think we have a right perhaps to ask about residential parking permits. Is there some way that we can keep Albany parking for Albany taxpayers and Albany residents, you know? After all, these are going to be El Cerrito people parking. Not that we have it in for El Cerrito, but we have to consider the people that are here right now and not be too, it's very easy to get enamored about developments. And everyone asks questions about the new development and how it's going and what they're going to go through and what's the footprint and what is the square footage. But the fact is that we have some very real problems of our cars, our children that are in school. Everyone in our building has children in the Albany school system, all right? They walk to schools. Right? So, and that's identical to all of my neighbors. We all share the same problems. And so we simply ask that the council take into consideration density, parking permits, and perhaps just close the end of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. I'm Jean Levain. I live on a 600 block of Cornell Avenue, and I have lived there for 19 years. And I am very concerned about safety, but also quality of life. While I have enjoyed having Trader Joe's and some of the development in El Cerrito Plaza, I have also noticed its impact on our neighborhood, and in particular the streets. So I'm concerned about the amount of traffic that will be flushed into our side streets with this condominium development. And thinking not only for now, but also for the future, as I anticipate that there will be more high-density housing units in certainly El Cerrito, if not Albany also, just in the general East Bay area. And I already see the impact on San Pablo Avenue and on our side streets. I especially notice a difference in noise and just in general busyness of the street. So I moved to Albany to live in a residential area, and I'm afraid that the feel will move more toward living on a somewhat major thoroughfare as more and more cars seek to avoid traffic on San Pablo and El Cerrito Plaza by cutting through on the side streets. I also am worried that some of the reports that may be done may underestimate the impact of the traffic that's being generated by the new condominium development. So thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Gooderman. I'm an owner of a condo at 417 Evelyn. I want to point out to the commission that this project actually is going to affect the entire city of Albany. It may not seem that way initially, but the way the project is written, all the cars from this project are going to be coming down Evelyn Avenue to get into their buildings. That means they're going to be coming up Brighton, turning in to Evelyn in order to get into their project. Brighton is a major thoroughfare for all students coming from all across Albany. The schools are encouraging biking, walking, skateboarding. So there's going to be tons of kids, plus the parents' cars, coming into that area on Brighton. Now you're going to be adding all these other cars. And my understanding from some of the children who we talked to is that some of these cars are barreling down Brighton as it is right now. Can you imagine what's going to happen in the future? So this is going to affect all the neighborhood of Albany because all of Albany is coming down into this area during school time. And that is of a great concern to me. We are a bedroom community. I moved here because of the Albany school system, because it's so good. It keeps property values nice and high. You know, it's an important thing to me. I don't have any children, but I think that education is very important. This is a major problem that El Cerrito is creating, and it's going to affect the entire city of Albany, not just our streets on Evelyn, literally the entire city of Albany. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we're calling Mike Sojaji and Karen Sojaji, Eugene Helwig, and Eleanor Moses.
Hello, my name is Mike Zojaji, my lovely wife, Karen. We live on 400 block on Cornell, right next to El Cerrito Plaza, actually two houses from El Cerrito Plaza. Lived there for 9 years, so have a very good feel for what the traffic or parking situation is there. If you're not familiar with the 400 block, there are a couple of houses there, and the remainder are essentially apartment buildings. We already feel the brunt of two things. One is traffic, one is parking. We already know it, it's already an issue, and I can't imagine what it'll be like in a few years. Traffic is quite problematic, speed. Safety is an issue. We have neighbors, and one of my neighbors there have a young son. I know they're concerned about it. We are concerned about safety. We daily back out of a car, and we have to keep watching for traffic. It's quite a big concern for us. People drive really fast on that street. The second biggest problem we have is actually parking. We find it quite difficult on numerous occasions to find parking where we live. That's even worse on weekends. Weekends, people have in the apartments, friends coming over, so the friends park on the street. During the day, people go shopping, and it is quite problematic. To give people a sense of what is happening, when Trader Joe's moved in, you can essentially say at least a 30-40% increase in traffic, and parking is huge for us. And we're talking one shop that is heavily used. And I'm just trying to figure out what it would be like when you have 120 houses, apartments, people moving in, each one having one or two cars. This is modern day. People still have one or two people, two cars, so 1.5 parking is not going to be sufficient for the people that are going to be living there. I don't see that happening right now, and all the overflow will come to our streets. So I'm highly promoting what the gentleman said earlier, that parking to be exclusive for the Albany residents. We need it now. We don't need it 2 years from now. I highly want to look in the city to look into that right now, and traffic management, slowing down the traffic. I was at this hearing 6-7 years ago, exact same hearing that we had. This is not new to me, and I did speak, and I asked for closure. I don't know what happened, but I'm speaking for that as well, that has to be closed. Go ahead.
And I would just reiterate what many other people have said too, is that those 400 blocks are all zoned for multi-unit complexes. So all of the 400 blocks are already more impacted than some of the other blocks when it comes to parking and pedestrian and other traffic. So just to say that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Here we go. I've been at 1201 Brighton Avenue since 1957.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have to ask you to stop the clapping so we can keep this meeting going. I'd like to hear all of you. And so if we can skip the clapping and just keep moving, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Any of you that are here that live on the 400 block of Talbot, excuse me, I'm sorry. But I have been for quite some time out in front of my house, stopping all of the delivery trucks coming out of the big ones coming out of the plaza up Cornell. A lot of them have quit coming up Cornell. They go up and come down Talbot now instead of Cornell. But we have delivery trucks coming into the plaza, coming out of the plaza, coming out on Talbot, coming in and out on Cornell. I've had my car hit a couple of times when I parked on the corner of my house. I have a handicapped stall because of my wife. So I'm parked there, and I've had cars come around the corner, and I can take you out and show you the marks and the bangs on my car. But we've gone through this from the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council for years. The last time we had a setup coming, we were talking about closing off all of the streets. I am all for it. When I first moved here in 1957, excuse me, I didn't move in Albany in 57. I moved in Albany in 24. When I moved at my house in 57, those streets, all of those streets were closed. They were not open. It was wonderful. When my kids were little, they could play up and down the street. All of the neighbors' kids could play up and down the street, no problem. The people that came in that street, they knew wherever they were going. They looked out for the kids. It was wonderful. Had no problems parking. Nowadays, you have troubles parking. People pull up and they park up on Brighton. They pick up their bags and go down to shopping and down at Trader Joe's and come back and walk up on the Brighton. A lot of people park ever so often. They're parked in front of my house for 3-4 days. It's wonderful. But the parking is terrible. I'm flashing. I'll see you. Thank you. And
Thank you.
please, if we can do anything, shut those streets down. Thank you.
Next.
Good evening. My name is Eleanor Moses. I'm a North Albany resident. And I think I speak for my neighbors when I say that we support transit-friendly housing. And some of us have actually reached out to the developer to talk about traffic circulation in the plaza. But many of us in the room would like to see the streets closed. And I'd just like to bifurcate the two issues because some of us were involved at the traffic and safety hearing in 2004 when the commission voted for street closure. And the issue actually, as Jean said, has been talked about in the neighborhood for a really long time. One of my neighbors said in the 80s, there was a movement to close the streets because of the commercial traffic. When the plaza was redeveloped, in the beginning of 2000, some of us approached the city because of the increased volumes of traffic and speeding, and traffic studies were initiated at that time, 2000, 2001, and they found there was on Cornell Avenue, a 20% increase in the volume of traffic, and on the other streets leading into the plaza, it was 19%. And so this issue has been longstanding, and the policy piece about closure has been discussed a lot as well. And in the correspondence I sent you, I actually quoted some of the language from EIRs in 1997 prior to redevelopment of the plaza. The EIR found that the proposed project would adversely affect residential quality of life for local streets in Albany. And there was a recommendation to close Talbot and Cornell Avenues at that time. That was 1997. So here we are in 2014, still having this conversation. There was a vote in 2004 by the commission, as I indicated, to close the streets, and at that time the commission, Farid Javidal was the chair of the commission at that time, and he felt that the projections for increased traffic, which were 15%, were extremely low. He thought it would be, I think he said, about 40%. And so the city in the EIR for this project, when it was included the parking garage and the child care center in that, when the city responded, when Albany responded, they also said that the projections were very low, and they warned the city of El Cerrito that our streets might be closed. So what I would like to say is that I understand that we need to work with El Cerrito, but I think the quality of life of residents in Albany is critical. And as we move forward and do street studies, I hope that we think about who lives and works and walks in the community. We're very concerned in North Albany about children. On Portland and Brighton, there is tremendous speeding, and Cornell Avenue is the only two-way street that comes out of the plaza all the way through, and because the blocks are longer between
I'm
Garfield
sorry, I need to
and,
ask you to finish.
okay, between Garfield and Brighton, there's a lot of speeding, and so as you do your traffic counts, we'd also like to encourage you to do speed studies on the targeted streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speakers? Next speakers, do we have any more speaker cards?
Okay.
Okay, so if there are others who have speaker cards, they can hand them in. We'll start with that. There may be some more in the back corner in green.
Mark Portier, Shirley Huey, and Randy Winstrom, and Mika Franks.
Hi, I'm Mark Fortier. I live on 404 Talbot Avenue. That's the second house from the plaza. So I get to see a lot of interesting things. And I just want to give you a list of the things that I've seen because I pretty much echo all the sentiments here. So first thing I see I smell a lot of pollution from the diesel trucks that come down Talbot because like the older gentleman there, we don't have someone telling the truck not to go down our street. We have a nice little sign with a nice little circle and a red line through it saying no trucks, but they're not going to really look at that. They're going to go right down Talbot. My wife saw two gentlemen sprinting out of El Cerrito Plaza with a bag, get in a car and peel out and go away, followed shortly by two police officers asking, "Did you see two people run around to the plaza?" Because Citibank apparently was getting robbed. So if you want to commit a crime and you need a good getaway street, Talbot's your street. Straight shot, right out of the plaza. It's perfect. I see a lot of intermingling of legacy street signage with current street signage. I still see a stop sign, a stop marking for cars intended to go down Talbot into the plaza, which is not. It's a one-way now, but it used to be a two-way. But the signage is still legacy. One of the stop signs in the plaza that runs parallel to Talbot, and you take a right onto our street, that stop sign's been primered out. So it doesn't even look like a stop sign anymore. And that causes some nice confusion right there at that choke point where you've got cars coming through Talbot with no stop sign, and all these cars converge. So I get to witness lots of accidents or near accidents and honking and people screaming to watch where they're going, and no one really knows what to do. So we know that's a snarling mess. What else we got here? There was a bike lane, I think, as part of the project proposal, which I think is a fantastic idea, but sorry to say, I think those bikes are going to have a hard time going up and down Talbot with cars speeding past them all the time. So I am just in favor of shutting it down. I mean, just like what everyone else is saying, I've been here for 4 years or 5 years now, and I've got two daughters, and I walk them to school. To Cornell, and so I don't even dare let them play out in the front. It'd be awesome if I lived in the 20s or where kids could play in the streets right there, but I don't dare let them go out there, not at this rate. So my solution would be great, just shut them down and go from there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shirley Huey, and I am also a resident on the 400th block of Evelyn. And I share a lot of the sentiments already provided by the speakers before me. But I just want to share, in addition, that the traffic, existing traffic as it is already with the plaza bordering our block, it's already quite heavy. On a daily basis, cars veer around the corner without stopping to look to see who's coming. There's no stop sign. Actually, there is a stop sign on Evelyn facing our block. There are no stop signs on either side on Brighton. And so frequently people will just turn with barely looking. And there are many children who live on the block. Young children, older children, school-age children walking to school. And in addition to that, there are other kids that come from the Albany schools who play with their friends on the block. And in addition to the young children, there are also a fair number of senior citizens who live on our block and in the streets surrounding, as well as individuals who are disabled, who are in wheelchairs or need other assistance with walking. And the traffic is very dangerous as it is. And I would say that right now there's a need to implement some kind of traffic control in that area. But at the same time, I would also agree with those who have called for a closure of the street. I think that would be the best solution. But barring that, some kind of traffic solution is needed right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mika Franks. I'm a 600 block of Talbot, so I'm barely even close to this project. That's 2 whole blocks. So Talbot is the main egress. I know we've talked about the entrance into this project, but the main egress to the south from this project is going to go straight down Talbot. And it's going to continue going down Talbot, which is a pretty small street, rather than having them or having people take a right on Brighton and go down towards San Pablo, or take a left and go up towards Masonic, which is about twice the width of Talbot. I think we have some evidence of this due to the high amount of accidents that have happened on Talbot, my car and my neighbor's car, just within the last 2 years. One from a DUI, allegedly, and the other a hit and run. So we were thinking about, if we can't do the closure, perhaps proactively diverting traffic towards Masonic and San Pablo as they exit to the south. Another option, or another thing that I've thought about with all this closure, or with the closure talk, is perhaps maybe mentioning to El Cerrito with the project, instead of waiting for perhaps going through legal ramifications, is just saying that that's where this rather large meeting is heading in Albany, is that we're considering closure. And I know you have to work with those guys. But try to maybe say that that's something that we're thinking about and we're talking about, and that might have an impact on what they decide. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brandy Weintraub, and I live on Cornell between the Plaza and Brighton. And I have a couple points. There hasn't been any discussion about what's going to happen during construction. Let's say that this does move forward. Where are their trucks going to come in and out of? Where are they going to park? Where they're going to put their dirt? How are they going to mitigate that? There's dust. I have a 2-year-old. Those things are important. We need to think about that. From what I've seen, the City of El Cerrito, which I agree with for the most part, has approved a specific plan that increases density along the San Pablo corridor. And so I'm in line with that. What I'm not in line with is the traffic. Cornell is not even large enough for 2 cars to actually pass at the same time. So you have cars that have to pull over to go around. They don't yield. I've made at least 2 phone calls to the police department because I'm not going to the end of the block to cross my street. And if I'm with my kid, I expect cars to yield, even cars that aren't going that fast. They just don't stop. They just keep going. Kid in hand, groceries, they don't stop. So I don't see that changing. I'd also just like to point out that, my complex, my balcony actually looks onto Talbot. And at least twice a day, I see cars going the wrong way. They see the sign and they go the wrong way. Anyway, I see that on Evelyn as well as on Talbot, so that's nothing new. I don't need to reiterate what everyone just said. I think we're all on the same page. And I think short of telling them that this is something that the community favors, they're not going to do a change. And it's inconsiderate for them to look at just Evelyn for their complex and not look at the other streets. So, I have some idea. I have a planning degree from UCLA, so I've got a little bit of a clue. I would just hope that you guys are sympathetic and put yourselves in our position and really advocate for us. Thanks.
Aleda?
We're going to call Val Williams, Michael Chu, Catherine Madison, Steve Alicote.
Good evening. My name is Val Williams, and I am the new superintendent of the Albany Unified School District. Thank you. Good evening. Tonight, I wanted to thank this commission and also thank the parents of Albany for advocating for our students in Albany. And I'm listening very closely to the comments and the concerns that you have raised, and what little that I and my staff can do to support this commission and to support the families in Albany. Our kids come first, and I want you to know that in whatever way we can support you. I will be watching this entire project very closely, and we'll be reporting back to our school board of the concerns, as well as, again, offering any support that I can. So again, thank you very much for supporting our students and for putting them first, and thank you all very much for sharing what you did. I'm hearing what you're saying. Thank you.
I'm Kathy Madison. I have a unit at 415 Cornell Avenue, which is the small unit, the small street between the plaza and Brighton. I represent the Homeowners Association there and have been to the meeting in 2008 and read the report. This was the traffic calming study. If you're looking at traffic calming, the report said that it will not prevent the people because it actually addressed this new complex as well as just the general area. And it said that it will not change the cut-through traffic because people will go the shortest distance or the least amount of time distance. So traffic calming is not going to, according to this study, change the cut-through traffic behavior. So it really they pointed to a solution of closing the streets, which is really the only solution because, as everyone here has said, these are tiny little residential streets. They're not meant to be a main thoroughfare to feed traffic into a commercial development and a project of this size. This is our street, a tiny little straw. We're being asked to be a fire hose right now, and it's not working. And it's going to get worse. We're going to be a water main. And it's going to spill out into the whole community, as people have said here. So we really need to close the streets. It's the only solution. So thank you for letting us all speak, and I hope you will, really listen to what this little neighborhood is telling you, because it will directly impact us, but it's going to impact everyone else too. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michael Chu. I live on the 400 block of Cornell. The first thing I'd like to say is that parking, safety are already an issue today. I know everyone keeps talking about the effect of this building, but they are already an issue today. People speed, it's unsafe, accidents happen. My car's been hit, my side view mirror has been knocked off twice. I mean, it's an issue. We can't find parking. So it is an issue today that needs to be addressed regardless of what happens with this building. I think everyone agrees with that. I'd have a couple suggestions. Number one, this is my most preferred solution, which is to close the streets, right? Number two suggestion is resident parking, as everyone has said. Number three suggestion, put in some speed bumps on all three of those streets. Number four, put in a four-way stop at Cornell. It's similar to Evelyn in that we are only stopped at our side, not on the Brighton side. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, he just stole my thunder. I'm Steve Alicote. I live at Cornell in Brighton. And my wife, many years ago, petitioned for a four-way stop sign. It was denied. Every week there's a near accident. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, an accident happened. Both cars ended up on the sidewalk. People could have been killed, especially children. So we're asking for a four-way stop sign at Brighton and Cornell. Thank you.
The next speaker is Ed Fields, Michael O'Donnell, Noel Plummer, Joanne Bernier.
Good evening, I'm Ed Fields. I live on the 600 block of Keynes. Let's not forget that Keynes is the other two-way street in and out of the plaza. It does turn one way after the 400 block. I support what's been said, but I noticed that no one has spoken yet from Stanage Avenue. Well, gee, Stanage Avenue is closed. You can't get through the creek. And also, no one yet has spoken from Keynes, and that's why I feel motivated to speak. When we had the recommendation back in 2006, I think, and I was here, many other people were here, the proposal was to close 3 streets, and then Keynes would be the only street in and out of the plaza except for San Pablo Avenue, which is the street that should be used. So again, I want to say what I said then, which is caution the commission, the staff, the council to take a good look at including Keynes in whatever we do. I'm very interested in the language that Jeff had up here of condition of approval number 50. And I tried to jot down a couple of the key phrases. But essentially, they have to do a study. And the study has to show a safe, effective, and efficient path from the project to San Pablo Avenue in El Cerrito. That's the study. And then it says, the applicant also agrees to install and/or construct all improvements called for in the study. Now, the study has to be done before they get a building permit. The improvements don't have to be done until they get a certificate of occupancy. So I want us to hold the commission, staff, and ultimately the council to this language to make sure that Jeff and his colleagues in the other city, maybe you have to upset your colleagues a little bit, Jeff, and hold them to it. Because that's what needs to happen. And then maybe, well, now the map is gone, but now maybe the entrance that goes right to Evelyn becomes an emergency-only entrance or exit from the condominiums. And maybe they need to find another entrance or exit somewhere in there, because essentially you're just sort of rejiggering parking spaces and entrances and exits so that it goes into the main thoroughfares in the plaza, such as they are main thoroughfares in the plaza. But again, the study calls for looking at the entire traffic circulation of the plaza, which has always been abysmal. So I think that I've covered everything that, I'll make sure. I think that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael O'Donnell. I live on the 600 block of Talbot, and like the other people on my block, I almost feel like we're lucky that we don't have the traffic that the people on the other side of Brighton are experiencing. But we still have a lot, and one of the things we get a lot of is the high-speed traffic. I mean, for the cut through from the plaza to the freeway to work, you actually have to drive quite fast between the stop signs. And we get a lot of that. I think a traffic density study would probably not show that there's an enormous number of cars that far down. But I do agree with the commenter who spoke about it, the need for a speed study, that I think we get an inordinate amount of speeding traffic. And one of the things Mr. Bond said is that in the case that the Creekside project goes forward, then you have an arsenal of standard tools that you can deploy to deal with the traffic that comes from that. And I appreciate that, but I look around this room and I hear over and over again the speakers talking about traffic problems that exist now. So I don't think that all of us are here because we're so terrified of this project being built. I think we're all here because this project has galvanized us to say, wow, we can't deal with any more traffic at all because we can't deal with the traffic we have. And so I heard you say that we would need to wait till school starts to conduct an appropriate study, but I guess I'm asking a question of the commission whether there are plans to deal with the North Albany traffic as it exists now, and maybe that needs to be a separate agenda item. But I really think that's what's needed, is to say, the residents are complaining our quality of life is diminished. And maybe this is something that a study and whatever possible measures need to be taken, completely irrespective of what happens in the parking lot of the El Cerrito Plaza. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Noelle Plummer. I live on the 400 block of Talbot. My timer didn't restart, just letting you know. My question about this project is why all the benefits of this transit community accrue to one city and all the detriments are burdening the neighboring city. So to me, that is not a fair way of planning a project. I'm a big fan of and a believer in high-density living. Otherwise, I wouldn't live in Albany. When we last addressed this, I think we learned that Albany was one of the highest density communities in the East Bay. I think Berkeley is the only higher density community. And I'm okay with that. I don't mind the busyness. I don't mind living in a more urban environment. And I long ago resigned myself to the fact that Albany is really a more urban community than it is a suburban community. But what I'm not fine with is poor planning that really adversely affects one city to the benefit of the other. We went through this when the plaza was revitalized. I've lived in my home for 18 years, which I can't believe is possible since I'm not that old. But the traffic planning in the plaza itself is a nightmare. And I cannot imagine burdening the intra-plaza traffic any more than it's already burdened. My car was hit this last year when I was backing out of my driveway by someone going the wrong way on Talbot, which happens many times a day. And we discussed last time the closing of the streets. I believe that there were some people who felt that closing all of the streets would adversely affect some Albany residents as well. Leaving Canes as the only open street seemed unfair, but we never got any of the traffic calming measures that were proposed. The bulb outs, the speed bumps, the removable pylons. I think there was an issue about safety vehicles, emergency vehicles being able to get in and out of the area. So I would prefer for all of the streets to be closed, but barring that, at least implement the traffic calming measures. I have the same concern about construction that I heard earlier. That was one of my first thoughts was, my goodness, where is all this construction traffic going to go? It's just incomprehensible to me that the egress and ingress would be unfairly burdening Albany streets. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for this time. Thank you, Commission, for hearing our comments. I'm a new person to Albany. I've been here 3 years. I have 2 4-year-olds about that height. I'm a co-captain of National Night Out on the 600 block of Talbot. And I think what I would just like to echo the idea that I feel that we need to do a proactive plan. We need to prepare, and we need to have our own study. I feel that if we have a study that the consultant may or may not be swinging towards the benefit of the plaza and the residents of the new condo complex, we will not be saving costs in the long run. We may have to have another grant to take care of traffic situations and police situations in the future. And I think it would be very wise of us to step forward and do a cost-effective study now versus waiting until things became a problem. In terms of what this impact will be, I believe in transit-friendly housing. I feel that we need to do that for our environment and for our world, but we need to prepare for that, and we need to do it in a wise and systematic way. I'd also like to say that it is about an 8-minute walk from the parking lot to the El Cerrito BART station. Anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but as a woman walking there, I don't feel comfortable. It's a really dingy part of the Albany path. And I actually walk through the plaza, which I would much rather not do than walk on the Albany Parkway in that particular area. Can I have a show of hands? And it's poorly maintained, and I hope that if we do go forward with this, that we are in touch with the BART authorities and make that a safe, lighted, level pathway for everybody, senior citizens, women, people in wheelchair with disabilities to walk on, so it will be used in a much more effective way by the condo. But I guess I'd like to end with the idea of, please, let us prepare for this. Let's get our own study. Let's have a consultant with the residents of Albany's good at heart. And let's work together with our neighbors in El Cerrito so that we actually get the facts and we can create a plan so we can all move forward in an effective way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're calling Scott Mitchell, Sally Douglas, Preston Jordan, and Clay Larson.
Hi, my name is Scott Mitchell. I live on the 400 block of Evelyn with my wife and our 3-year-old daughter. We feel extremely blessed. We moved to Albany about a year ago. The housing market in the Bay Area is terrible, and we feel extremely lucky and fortunate to be able to come to Albany for the schools and the quality of life. And I echo everything that's already been said. I want to say again, close the streets. Close all of them. I was when we first heard about this, we said we should close Evelyn. It goes right into this condo. That's ridiculous. I would hate for one street to be closed or 2 streets to be closed and then have the rest of the traffic go to Keynes or Talbot or somewhere else. Close all of the streets. Albany in the 50s sounds wonderful. I also want to echo that we should be planning ahead. Clearly, there's a lot of traffic problems. There should be 4-way stop signs all up Brighton. We should also absolutely do speed bumps on all of these streets. I used to live in Berkeley, and I hate driving across Berkeley because you cannot drive across Berkeley except for on 3 streets because the city of Berkeley has blocked off all of the residential streets. That drives me crazy, but it's a good idea. It's a good idea, and we should do it. I also just want to say that, again, that the construction issue is a huge problem. We need to think about the construction issue. These trucks are going to come down my street. I can tell you that right now. And if they're building a huge condo complex at the foot of my block, that's where the dirt's going to go. And I am very, very worried about that. These are things that we can do, we can be proactive about. Close the streets. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I want to thank the Commission for listening to all of us and our comments, and thanks to everybody here who's spoken or is here in spirit. My name is Sally Douglas. I live on the 600 block of Talbot. I've lived there 20 years, and I've lived at 3 other addresses in Albany before that. In the 20 years on the 600 block of Talbot, the traffic has increased significantly. In the last 6 months, I have noticed people just totally driving through stop signs, not stopping at all. I echo the comments of Joan, my neighbor on Talbot, that Albany be very proactive. I lived in the student housing, the UC student housing. There were complaints and hearings to put a signal at the corner of San Pablo and Monroe. There were all kinds of excuses why it couldn't happen until a grammar school age girl was killed in that crosswalk walking to Cornell School. I don't want that to be what has to happen to get the city of Albany and the city of El Cerrito to work together. We don't need a student, an elder, one of us who walk, ride their bikes. I love living in Albany because I can walk and do most everything I need to do. So I really, really urge you to, the traffic is very bad now. We all have that bad habit, myself included. take the roads of least resistance. Oh, I can go this way through town, but we're impacting somebody else's neighborhood and quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, staff, for bringing this issue back, and the commission for considering all our input. Preston Jordan, I live on the 500 block of Talbot, and while I haven't been active in this issue lately, I was very, very active in 2004, 2006 timeframe. When my children first started walking to the middle school, one of the first things I taught them was do not walk on the north side of Brighton, because there's what's called a free right-hand turn for westbound motorists to turn right onto Evelyn. It's fairly blind, and they just whip around that turn. I was afraid they would get hit. So it's already a scary situation, and lots of kids walk on that side. I'm always very concerned for them. This building will be the largest building in El Cerrito, which is just is amazing to me that they would put it in this location, and it's frustrating. I think they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They could have done mixed use right when they redeveloped the plaza, but they couldn't get it done. And now they're trying to stick this Band-Aid on the back and say, mixed use. I challenged the Greenbelt Alliance when they endorsed this project because it doesn't meet a lot of their standards. It has, the ground level is all garage parking. So from a pedestrian scale perspective, it's absolutely not what's supposed to be done architecturally. There's supposed to be some interaction with the surrounding area. That's why we got these few stoops put in, but that's really not enough. So it's terrible pedestrian design. We searched for other shopping centers like this that had local streets that went into them in this fashion, and I think we found one somewhere on the peninsula, but it's just extraordinarily unusual to have local streets as these main access ways. If Albany's going to deal with this, you got to be real. It's going to be legal hardball, and El Cerrito has a history of playing legal hardball with us. When the middle school went in, El Cerrito, from what I've heard, they threatened to sue if Albany didn't pay to close the street. Barron's Spokane, because they wanted to protect their residents on Barron's. And the word has come through that if we try to close our streets, they will threaten to sue us. It's like, that's what it is. And at the time I went to the council and I said, you gotta be stronger on this. And the response I got from them was, oh, they're nice people, we can work with them. Councilmember Lieber, and this is not to castigate him in any way, he went and talked to the developer and said, we had an idea, if that developer would cut off Evelyn, then they could have access to Evelyn. If they made it a cul-de-sac, which would leave enough room to make it a turnaround there, if they would cut it off, then there could be a garage opening on that side of the south building. And the developer said, oh, that's a great idea to have a garage opening on the south side of the building. We'll put that in, but we're not going to cut the street off. So it's just all take. And the commission's already voted to close the streets. So, it's really up to the council. I guess you can send the recommendation up again, but it's kind of frustrating. The study's been done. Some people are calling for a study. The study's been done. The city spent $100,000 on a study. So if the study's been done, we shouldn't be spending more money on studies. The conclusion of that study was block the 3 streets and then block through traffic on Canes in the Brighton intersection with the barrier so that people who are coming out of the plaza cannot continue south on Canes. So that would prevent increased motorist traffic on the 500 and 600, 700 block of Canes. So there would be an impact to Canes, but the study's been done. And the reason for that was because El Cerrito would probably have a legal case if we closed all 4 because it would impact the intersection functions on San Pablo. So that was why the consultant recommended leaving Canes open. Thank you.
Clay Larson, Albany resident. I don't live anywhere near this project, so I'm not a NIMBY. I do want to offer my sympathy and empathy for the residents. I would encourage the commission to take whatever action necessary and as strong and aggressive action as necessary to mitigate the problem. But I want to talk more generally about, I think in a nutshell, the problem here is a large infill development that doesn't provide adequate parking. Now in Albany, we have an ordinance. It's known as a Measure D ordinance because it was voted on election contest, which sets parking ratios. There are folks in town who see Measure D as a real evil and see certainly a significant reduction or perhaps elimination of parking ratio requirements in Albany as a solution to global warming, affordable housing, planters' warts, almost anything. And I think when we had that discussion about Measure D and about reduction of Albany's parking requirements, we need to keep in mind the impact of situating a large infill development certainly, and this would apply to any of our multi-family, certainly San Pablo, certainly Solano, but any multi-family residential district. The impact of situating a large infill development without adequate on-site parking and the impact it has on the nearby neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more cards?
No more cards.
Was there anybody who couldn't find a card who wanted to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the council, to the commission, sorry. And this would be a good time for us to discuss it.
My first comment is every person who's here tonight and spoke to the council, spoke to the commission is an Albany resident who's opposed to the project. I'm a little bit disappointed that nobody from El Cerrito showed up to defend the project. And what does that mean about their attitude about us? And would it be unusual? Would it be common for someone to speak to explain why they've done things this way and why we should accommodate them? Or if the fact that they aren't speaking to it suggests that they feel they have nothing to fear from us and that it's a done deal and there's nothing we can do, then that suggests that they already are playing hardball. So I don't know, do any of you have thoughts about why this is not a dialogue?
Is it a dialogue at the staff level?
The dialogue is focused on compliance with the conditions of approval. The project itself has been approved, and whether they like it or not, actually, I think, to be honest with you, I think they have some of the same concerns about the function and urban design of El Cerrito Plaza that everyone else in the room does. But they don't have, no planner has the ability to reverse a vested decision that a city council has made, and that's a situation that they have. So the dialogue that we can have at a staff-to-staff level is about how they're going to implement these conditions of approval. And that is happening at the staff level.
So can I clarify about the conditions of approval? What the conditions require is that the developer has to build a route through El Cerrito Plaza that allows people from the development to get to San Pablo without using our local streets. And that it has to be good enough in some sense, but there's nothing in that condition that would actually prevent people from continuing to use our local streets if they choose, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So if it helps the Commission's discussions, I do feel like, based on the public testimony that's been received and perhaps your discussion, that we can come back with a more comprehensive outline of next steps, if you wanted to do that, and if you want to discuss what you'd like to see in some of those next steps. One of the speakers mentioned that the Commission back in a number of years ago, a different set of members of the Commission made a recommendation to the City Council. You might want to review that recommendation and see if you wanted to forward that to the Council. It's a different Council now as well. And so that may be something that you want to, as part of your discussion, help give us some direction on.
Can you tell more about what happened after that recommendation was made?
I'm sorry, I personally wasn't involved at that time, so I really don't know what the history was. Maybe later can help.
My involvement was in 2010. I think that this recommendation happened. It was Fair and Peer, if I remember correctly. Fair and Peer's consulting firm did a study, and there were some mini circles and traffic calming by the intersecting streets. We decided not to continue with the issue because El Cerrito had basically some issues with the project, and it seemed that was not going to go forward anymore. And that's my recollection. I didn't review the literature right now, so it's what I remember from 2010.
So do we even know if that recommendation is still outstanding or needs to be renewed if we decide to renew it?
I would renew it. Yeah, it's the council, the commissioners who made it none of you were on it at that time, I don't believe. And the council members have changed as well, and we'll have, again, new council members in a couple of months. So that the timing of how this can be addressed is probably doing some homework at the commission level now, so that when the new council takes their office in December, they can pick up this issue and start to work on it in 2015. That would be my recommendation.
We can review what it was done in 2010 or 9, whatever year that was.
Well, I think at one point Fareed was still chair of this committee, and he was on council 8 years, so it's been a long time.
That would maybe before the study that I was telling you.
Right, but I think that was when the original decision was made.
Yeah.
But anyway, not to digress too much here. Well, I think that I would at least, I want to say thank you to all of you for coming out, first of all, because you gave your night to be here with us. And I really hear what you're saying about there's a problem regardless of whether this building gets built. So I would like to consider this a request to do traffic studies. I know it's not maybe the kind of request that neighbors signing a petition or whatever, but I think we're hearing these people, and I think we need to do this. So I'd like to suggest, or if you want a motion at this point, that we do the volume and speed studies and start getting some real data now, well, in September, I guess, when school starts, but start to at least move this part of the project forward with the idea of being aggressive and being ready to do more if we need to.
Is that a motion that we need to do, or?
I don't know if we're ready for a motion.
Yeah.
Well, I guess one thing we need to clarify is what area would the studies cover, and people have commented the study would need to cover both volume and speed, so I think that's understood, but and some people have wished for the area to cover a larger geographic area of North Albany.
Well, the larger the area, the little bit more time it will take us to collect the data and get it organized and analyze it. But we can, I would certainly say that for the two northernmost blocks, north of Brighton and south of Brighton, for all the streets that are leading in and out of the plaza.
For all the streets, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just get that baseline data. And then as part of that, it adds more time and energy to this, but we probably ought to look at some of the parking issues and do some parking surveys in those same blocks. The lady's about to kill me. To be able to quantify that issue as well, and then to be able to add to the discussion. We heard something, a number of people mentioned the permit parking as a potential solution to the parking impacts, and that would help in that regard as well.
Well, further on our agenda it talks about the parking study. Can we fold that into here? This part into that parking study?
Well, we can. I mean, actually, we might be. Well, what happened is that right now the map includes 2 blocks from San Pablo Avenue, east and west. 2 or 3 blocks that are affected by the auto shops on San Pablo Avenue, the parking that of the cars on Madison, and I don't know where they go. So basically, it's just we're going to include that. So it will include Keynes and
Yeah, if I may interrupt, I would recommend keeping them separate.
Okay.
They're going to be on very different paths, addressing very different issues. And I think it would be better to keep this focused on the issues that this neighborhood has and answer their questions and inform you for a good recommendation.
they will have parking occupancy on 2 blocks.
I just don't want the 2 studies they'll be on different timelines it gets complicated when things are kind of going in different directions.
So if we, as a first step toward dealing with this, ask you to do this study that you've described, is there a big cost, financial or staff time for that?
For the speed and survey?
The speed and volume, and yeah.
There'll be some work, yeah. I'm not sure that Leda and I could answer that on the fly right now, but we would need to collect the data, whether we can do it in-house with the resources we have or hire a consultant is what she and I need to think through. It's not on our work plan right now, so it's something we're adding to the work plan for the fall. But one way or the other, we'll come back to you with how we would propose to proceed with that and get that rolling as quickly as we can.
So that's talking about the speed and volume studies. Parking study would be different, but we're talking about that in the same area. And then not to forget, I do think we need to pull up the recommendation that was a recommendation in 2010?
I think it was in 2010. And I'm sorry I didn't do my homework right now because I've been very busy with the grant application, but I promise I'll do it in September.
Yeah. Okay.
So do you need a motion about the study, or?
I think it was early, 2008, something like that, or 9. Then it was the ATP. I remember the ATP, but.
It was earlier.
One thing I want to mention about the parking is that what I've observed on Brighton also is that in all of the streets is people park right to the intersection, and the visibility, even if there's a stop sign, is blocked. According to the vehicle code, nobody should park within 20 feet of an intersection. So what we're going to do right now is red curve 20 feet, and that's something that I started doing, but that's by vehicle code. We have to make them red because people do not abide by that.
So that's going to reduce parking a little bit in the neighborhood.
But technically, there's no parking. Nobody should park within 20 feet.
So that would be on each of the streets and on clearly both sides of Brighton.
Yeah, it's kind of like
if it's already
staggered depending on the direction of the vehicle, but that's one thing we are going to do because of safety. Okay. And because also on that side, east side of San Pablo and the west side of San Pablo, that problem is prevalent. And so every street, because it's so parking has high demand, they park all the way to the intersection.
So you were talking briefly about the Fair and Pierce report, and I think you indicated that it seemed dated and that we couldn't rely on it. Could you explain that a little more?
If ultimately the decision is to close the streets, and anticipating that there would be some objection to that, whether it's from the city of El Cerrito or the developer of El Cerrito Plaza or whatever, we would want to use current data to support that decision. We will have to do some level of environmental review, and while having that old data is helpful and informative, it's not defensible for a decision if it's going to be made in 2015 to use 5-year-old data.
So we're already talking about gathering some new data.
If we're going down the path of making a decision whether or not to close streets, yes, I would recommend having fresh data to support that decision, absolutely.
Okay.
Incidentally, but if I may, just one other comment that a couple people mentioned about construction traffic. There is a different condition of approval that construction traffic would be prohibited from using Albany streets. Corralling contractors to actually comply with something like that is very tough, but we will coordinate with the police department, and certainly our building inspector is really good about making sure that the best he can to make sure the contractor complies with that, and we'll call the police department if he sees any violations of that. So we're aware of the impact that will have on the neighborhood as well as the ultimate implementation of the project.
But that's already clearly
Yes.
documented.
Yes.
Okay. At least documented.
All right, so do we need to make a motion to get the data gathered, or have we already sort of directed you on that?
Let's do a motion.
Yeah, I think a motion just to kind of summarize it for everyone would be helpful, and to make sure that you all are on the same page.
Peggy, you wanna?
Then I'll move that you do a speed and volume study on the 2 blocks heading into the El Cerrito Plaza? And,
No, all blocks.
Adjacent.
The two.
Be one block north and south of
right,
Brighton.
That's 2, 1 block north and south of Brighton.
Yeah, 2 blocks.
On all four.
On all 4
On all
streets,
4
right.
streets.
Right, all 4 streets for 2 blocks on each street, right? Okay. And also, do you want the parking study as part of this? And also to do a parking study?
Parking occupancy study.
In the
Parking
same-
occupancy study in the same area.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Susan?
Can we hear from the public before we vote on this? There's some people with their hands up.
And can I just add one more thing? That we do this in September?
We don't do traffic surveys or anything in the summer.
Right, but I don't want it to be November. Well, I mean, I want to get it in the motion that we
Yeah,
do it as soon as
yeah.
possible, which would be September.
We do have 1, 2 hands, perhaps we've got 3 hands. Perhaps we could have like a 30-second time period for each of you?
To talk just about this motion. for
Yeah,
now.
just about the motion. And we'll ask you to come up to the podium because we need to get it on the transcript.
I'll take 5 seconds. I just would like it to be on record that there's at least 60 residents here tonight. Thank you.
Not exactly about the motion.
I'd like to ask that you extend the traffic volume and speed studies to Portland. There's a lot of student traffic on Portland and a lot of speeding, and I really think we need to capture the data for safety reasons. And currently, you're just going Brighton and Garfield, and then going all the way up to Portland would give us a lot more important data.
I just wanted to be clear in the motion, were you also getting the east-west streets like Brighton for the speed study?
No, I don't think that was the intent. I think at that point, we're doing north to south. Do you want to include Brighton in your study? Aleda, would you like to include Brighton in your study?
Yeah, it's fine.
So just to caution the commission,
Right.
I only
you're
have
expending
3 counters.
Yeah, just the amount of time it's going to take us to collect the data and analyze it, we're happy to do it. But as the radius extends, the amount of time it takes increases.
For this study, it's very important to capture weekend data as well. So not only weekdays. So we might have to keep them for a week, because sometimes it can be just kept for 3 days. But in this case, I would rather have the whole week.
So I'm sensitive to what you're saying, but on the other hand, if we don't have information about Brighton, if we're making some decisions in traffic calming, don't we?
It will take longer
do we not
than
need
September,
that
for sure.
Yeah.
It will start
Yeah.
September and then maybe in October.
Yeah, it's not an objection to the covering the geographic area, it's just letting you know how much time it's going to take.
I totally understand that, but I don't know if it would impair us, push it down later if we don't have the information on Brighton. I'm kind of asking that to the commission too.
I think a compromise would be to do the Brighton data, but only do the 2 blocks. And we've been requested to do all the way to Portland. But I think if we limit it to the first 2 blocks and also do Brighton, that seems like a reasonable compromise.
Yeah.
Brighton
If there are problems on Portland, I think that is worthy of study, maybe as part of a separate project.
Right. And can Brighton between Evelyn and Keynes? Or, I mean,
That's a good question.
I mean, I would say, if you're,
Had to be from Masonic to San Pablo.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
just
think
give
it would
a
have to
whole
go, I think your discussion of methodology is correct. I think you should have it for the 7 days. I think you should do in terms of the data for speed and volume, that's pretty straightforward. As for parking, that includes a little bit of, I would have thought, narrative as well, and testimony about people's parking habits. I don't know exactly what your methodology for that is, but I would like to stress, as long as we have our new superintendent of education here, I don't know how well you personally know this intersection. It is absolutely crowded with students. You have to understand this, that when school gets out, this entire section, this top of Evelyn is completely crowded with students. There's no stop signs there. I'm just waiting for some student, God forbid, to be killed there. And unless you add the student traffic as well, you're not going to get a clear picture. I just want to say that, okay? Please include it. Please include it in your methodology.
Okay, so what do you want to do about Brighton?
As much as possible, but, so, what direction do you need?
Okay, right, so we'll do speed and surveys. I can do traffic counts, turning counts too, by intersection, which will capture all the traffic that will go from the plaza. And one thing right now, I have counts from San Pablo onto Brighton. I have good counts in the morning during school time. I can collect counts from Keynes and Brighton and the other intersections up to Masonic. I mean, Masonic is really, I would say up to Evelyn here. Yeah. I don't know why Masonic is included. I mean, whatever passes Evelyn, traveling east, is going to Masonic.
Can't go anywhere else.
But then Masonic, there's also more traffic going east onto Brighton, and that might be, if we go into Masonic, that might be a separate issue then.
Okay.
So I think for this purpose, for the El Cerrito condominium development, I think we should go, honestly, from Keynes to Evelyn, and we have intersection counts and speed data and volume data for San Pablo and Brighton. But we will capture with we will capture it with. Yeah. So we will capture the with the intersection count at Evelyn. We'll capture that.
Okay.
Okay, so is the motion as previously stated?
We need to amend.
Does it cover everything that we've?
I think we need to add Brighton between Evelyn and Keynes. Is that what you're thinking?
What I was thinking.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. Are you happy to do that?
I'll second.
Okay. So that's amended, and the amendment is seconded.
Correct.
Great.
Who seconded the first one?
I did.
Any additional discussion at the commission level? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
So we'll start to work on this. We will be happy to communicate with anyone in the neighborhood who's interested in the progress that we're making. And I would expect that we'll be back at the commission probably October.
Okay.
So can I make sure I understand some things about the procedure here? Suppose that we, as a city, not us on the commission, but we and the council collectively decided we were just going to make everyone's dream come true here and close the streets. What would be the procedure? What would we have to do legally to make that happen, and what would be the consequences?
That I'd like to do a little bit more research on as well. I don't want to. I need to study the municipal code a little bit on what the street closure process would be, and look at the work. It certainly was probably done back in 2007 or 2008. I do know we'll need an environmental review. That usually takes, depending on the level of review, somewhere between 6 months to a year and a half, depending on the degree of controversy and the potential impacts that we'll find.
But in terms of like legal fallout from El Cerrito, is there?
That's what I'd like to research a little bit for you before trying to answer that.
Is there a possibility of getting someone from El Cerrito to come and present their case and why we shouldn't just do what everyone here is saying?
I'll extend the invitation. My guess is they will just say to us,
do
whatever you want to do. And that they, you know, if I were to anticipate that, they would say, do whatever you want to do, but as long as you mitigate the impacts on the city of El Cerrito. I don't know what else they could say at that point.
Okay.
And what about other actions we might take short of closing the streets? Like what if we put in a speed bump, a very obnoxious speed bump at every junction between one of those residential streets and El Cerrito Plaza?
So in my original presentation to the commission, I suggested that kind of taking an incremental approach because that's a lot easier to do. You do it nearly every month here, or consider that nearly every month. So we can do traffic calming things, signage, speed humps, other kinds of things much more easily and rapidly and less expensively than a formal street closure.
And those things don't require an environmental review?
They don't require the same level of environmental review that a full street closure would, because in the case of a full street closure, we're diverting that traffic elsewhere that we have to then analyze and mitigate, if there is.
Yeah, I mean, the goal of the speed bump would be to make it maybe 2 or 3 speed bumps in a row to make it so unpleasant that people would choose to use the El Cerrito access that's mandated by the condition rather than choosing to use the Albany access.
Well, there are some guidelines about the distance between the 2 speed humps.
Okay.
And also, I don't know if people who live in front of those speed humps, if there is a way to put them in 3, I've seen them everywhere, I mean, somewhere else. The noise of the tires is also.
Yeah.
Again, we'll come back in October. We'll try to answer those questions. We'll have a much more comprehensive analysis of everything that you've heard tonight. And hopefully by then we'll have at least a substantial amount of data, if not all of it. It's quite a bit of work that's being introduced tonight, but that's all right. We'll
But
do
it
our
sounds
best.
like that work is really essential in order, if we were going to proceed with a closure,
Absolutely.
we would need to do that work.
Absolutely.
As preparation anyway, so.
Yeah.
When's your best guess that they'll try to start building? If they, let's say they meet, do we have any idea?
I don't have it. I don't have any information. I can only speculate on my experience with other projects. I would guess they're probably 3 or 4 months out.
From starting to build?
Yeah.
So the study that we're going to be doing is laying a baseline that we'll understand. It sounds like we'll kind of understand current state better. And when we do look at things, we usually look at things street by street. But in this particular case, it's, even embarking on this study, it's more of a section, a region, because of this, caused by kind of this new, well, not caused by current situation, and then also we're guessing, right? We're going to see some other effect. So basically, I guess where I'm going is, I think for the commission, for what I'd like to do with the commission is that we continue to look at this, look at the results from that, and then keep our ears open and perhaps measure again and really look at this as a region instead of just street by street through this process? Is that just what we just do, or is there something more official about that?
Yeah, you should look at this in a comprehensive way. If you do it street by street, you're just moving the problem one
Right,
block
we'll
at a time.
right, that's what I'm trying to say, but I'm not saying it very well. Because chances are that initial measurements might not say speed bumps or whatever we might want to try to do once it happens. And then even the next measurement might not say it across all 4 streets, but we know if we do something on 1 or 2, it's going to hop over, we think.
I think we all agree that we're looking at this in a regional mode.
So the other thing, I'm sorry, the other thing that came up quite frequently was talking about parking permits. And I know we've looked at this a little bit. It seems very complicated, and we don't have any parking permits right now in the city, to my understanding. I might need a little refresher on what the requirements are, because again, that's a regional view, if I remember correctly.
Right, and, well, the municipal code lays out the process.
Yes.
So there is, the policy is there, so it's a matter of, the logistics, basically.
Right.
Because we never had it before, so it's going to be just, somebody has to administer that program, too.
But am I right that there already is a mechanism for neighbors to request parking permits on their street, and that nobody has put that into play yet?
That's what I'm trying to say right now, basically.
Okay, so if people actually want parking permits in their neighborhood today, before the project is built, what should we tell them to do?
Well, we can review with them the municipal code requirements. Candidly, they're very old standards and policy. I don't remember all the details, but it's something that dates back from the 1950s or something. And it was created really to deal with parking overflow from Golden Gate Fields back in the day when it was a created parking overflow into the neighborhoods in West Albany. So we could also modernize this. One of the things I've always wanted to do is modernize that permit parking requirement in our municipal code so that it meets kind of today's issues and challenges. But one way or the other, we can figure out how to make that work for the neighborhood. I think that would be very helpful to them.
So if there were to be permit parking, would you expect that anybody could buy a permit, but Albany residents would buy them at a steep discount, and people living elsewhere would have to pay a much higher price for them? Or?
It's a resident.
It's for residents.
It's residents.
Parking for residents only.
I just can't remember how it reads exactly. But.
Yeah, I can't do that.
I remember that it's only for residents. It doesn't.
Yes.
It doesn't include anybody else.
So it's not really a parking management program. It's just kind of a we hate our neighbors program.
It's more like to preclude drivers who don't live in the city, who are not local, or who don't hold the permit to park on certain streets that are part of the zone for residential parking.
Okay. I mean, would it be possible to propose a more flexible system for managing parking that would include
whatever changes we propose to this particular chapter of the municipal code have to follow the procedure for change.
Okay, so if we wanted to implement a more market-oriented parking permit system, we'd have to change the municipal code to do that?
It diverts from what it is, yes.
Okay.
But I think what it is actually is suited to this situation, should the neighbors be interested in that. I think how it's written right now actually does address really specifically this kind of situation where you're butted up against another city in terms of residents. So you could qualify only the residents of Albany for those parking permits in that area.
I think so too, but we need to really read it. As I said, I haven't read it before this meeting, but from what I remember, yes. But it's a long chapter, it's two or three pages. Something like that.
But if I've heard people saying that it's already too hard to park, and I don't imagine most of that pressure is coming from people using El Cerrito Plaza parking in Albany. I think there are neighborhoods in Albany that are just hard to park in because too many people are taking advantage of free street parking. And
correct. People have more cars than there is room to park.
And people don't use their own parking space to park their cars.
Exactly.
And so to the extent that this problem is a kind of a particular example of that, I think a more flexible parking scheme would be better. But if that can't be done quickly, then maybe this kind of limited scheme you're talking about would address the particular problem of the additional parking burden presented by this development. But that's not the only parking complaint I heard from the audience tonight. I heard complaints that it's just too hard to park. So
I was going to say that we hear this from almost every neighborhood. So
sure.
I think we were on the right track like a year ago when we broke into committees to work on these issues, and I'm half of the parking one, so I can say this, that we haven't done a very good job, and maybe this is sort of the impetus to get us back on track to look at the municipal code as we were tasked with a while ago.
Yeah. Well, and I think to your point, I mean, some of these tools that we have haven't been used because there's another effect, right? I mean, like the people that have multiple cars that are enjoying the free parking on the streets, you know, there is a little check on that, I think, from what I remember, you know, there's a couple, I don't remember how it works exactly, but I mean, parking is becoming more and more of an issue, so I do think that it's time to look at it. But I thought it was mine. I didn't think it was yours.
That's freed me.
Oh.
I also had a question about enforcement today before the project is built, since we heard a lot of complaints about people going the wrong way on Talbot and people ignoring stop signs and people making right turns at unsafe speed. And I mean, do we have evidence that that's an ongoing and serious problem in that area? And is there something we can do with the police department to step up enforcement?
We'll pass on the message and have a dialogue with them about that. I don't know off the top of that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable saying that that the police should direct their attention to a specific neighborhood for traffic violations unless we have some kind of evidence that that neighborhood is worse than others in Albany, because I'm sure the department does the best they can to enforce traffic laws in general, but.
We'll, like I say, I don't know what the officers who are out there patrolling every day probably have a pretty good idea of where the trouble spots are, and we'll talk to them about their impressions of that.
Okay, great.
Again, we'll be back with you in October with hopefully a full comprehensive response to the issues that you've discussed this evening.
And you'll dig up the recommendation to council, and can we look at the Fair and Pierce study,
Yes.
even if it's dated?
We'll get all that. We'll
Okay.
pull all that together.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody who came and spoke about this issue, and we'll revisit it as we go forward. We invite you to stay and participate in the rest of the meeting. We're actually going to hear a little bit about other things that El Cerrito is doing. Our next item is about a review of the El Cerrito draft San Pablo Avenue Specific Plan and draft Environmental Impact Report.
So this is an information item. The city of El Cerrito has undertaken an ambitious effort to analyze and develop new zoning standards and new public right-of-way standards for San Pablo Avenue. Just by a little bit of kind of planning background, a specific plan is kind of a hybrid planning document. Places like Albany, we have a general plan, which is the big policy document, and then we have a zoning code that has the gory details of how so heights and setbacks and kind of the nitty-gritty of implementing a project. A specific plan is a hybrid where it has both of those components in it. And if approved by a community, the specific plan becomes the law, and it becomes the reference book that planners use and developers and property owners use to do projects within that geographic footprint. So the specific plan has a couple of major components to it. There's probably more than we can get through in detail, so happy to come back in the future. It's in the draft form. The one element of it is called a form-based code. It's an innovative new way of looking at zoning ordinances that kind of looks at a area, not so much, it looks at an area in terms of the physical shape that the buildings will take and how they interact with one another. Traditional zoning ordinances like Albany's evolved out of trying to keep things separate and buffers between different uses, and industry in one area, commercial in another area, residential in a third. And the form-based code really takes that on, does a kind of 180-degree perspective on that and looks at integrating these kinds of things a little bit more. So it's a more progressive way of looking at land use policies, and in many respects an interesting and innovative thing for the city of El Cerrito to be doing. They are planning to increase the density of development in the corridor, which is a theme that we're seeing throughout the Bay Area on streets like San Pablo Avenue. So there's a pretty substantial component of the project, of the report, that goes into the details of the form-based code. And then the other substantial component of it is the complete streets. And you're very familiar with complete streets, having just completed a study. They're doing a somewhat similar analysis, looking at making the street functional for pedestrians, bicyclists, transit, and so forth. And again, I think they're to be applauded for taking that on, and the success and function of San Pablo Avenue along its whole entire corridor is a benefit to the East Bay. We have provided the city of El Cerrito some preliminary comments, and I'll just kind of summarize those briefly. First of all, they tend to kind of crop the study right at the city limit lines, and it's like you're at the end of the world. And really, the integration of our two communities is pretty significant, and there's a lot of flow back and forth every day in all sorts of different modes of travel. So our suggestion would be that they kind of recognize that the city limit line is there, but the activities cross the city limit line, including the El Cerrito Plaza BART station is basically our BART station for the bulk of the community, of the city of Albany. And El Cerrito Plaza is an important commercial destination for Albany residents. Some of the graphics that they've shown for El Cerrito Plaza show a grid network through El Cerrito Plaza, although it's really not clear what they'd be removing buildings and things associated with that grid. So it's not clear what that is all about, and I think some clarification of whether they have a long-term vision of extending our grid into El Cerrito Plaza or not would be helpful to know. Let me just run through this first. There is some talk about improving bus stops in El Cerrito, and that's great. I would want to ask them to be sensitive to any potential relocation of a bus stop that might have corresponding impacts on our bus stops, that we don't, as a consequence, if they shift a location a little bit, do we lose a bus stop, or do we have our bus stop shift? And then one area of concern is, and I'll pull this up a little bit, is whether or not through the kind of unintended consequences of the project, and this is something incidentally the Planning and Zoning Commission talked a little bit about as well, is that due to congestion on Central Avenue, if travelers using Interstate 80 or Interstate 580 decide rather than to kind of slog through the freeway, they get off of Buchanan and try to take surface streets, as whether it be Pierce or some of the others, to cut through and avoid the freeway and the Central Avenue traffic and work their way up towards El Cerrito Plaza or someplace else, that we'd like them to give consideration to that. However, I also indicated to them we'd welcome their pedestrian or bicyclists who want to do that, their street or something else as an alternative route. But for vehicle traffic, we'd have some concerns about adding congestion to our streets. There's also talk about a gateway treatment at the city limit line, and I think we ought to collaborate with them on that so that the gateway is to both communities, and what they do is complementary to what we may want to do there. And then two other things to mention. There's some graphics in the report about creek networks, and again, it's not really quite clear how what they're doing would link into what exists or what we'd like to see along Cerrito Creek, and some of the public walkways and bikeways that might ultimately be along Cerrito Creek. And then if they were to implement some improvements, some changes to their parking programs on San Pablo Avenue in El Cerrito to consider what the implications might be for us. So for example, if they had metered parking on San Pablo Avenue and we don't, are we ready for that? And are we, maybe we are, maybe that's something we want. I'm not prejudging whether that's good or bad, but just to be sensitive to how that would have some consequences on us. It's a substantial document. We're still going through it. We have an intern who's helping us on this. She had to leave a little early this evening. But it continues to be a work in progress in our review, and be happy to hear from the commission, members of the public, anything that they've seen that they think we ought to bring to the attention of the city of El Cerrito.
I noticed those grids in El Cerrito Plaza. It's really weird. It's like, it is like through buildings. It's weird. I think it was interesting to note that El Cerrito Plaza, I mean, they're calling that downtown. I guess they spread downtown out. But to have their downtown abut exactly to Albany is...
I don't think they mean downtown in the sense of the center of town, the business district. I think downtown just means the south end of town.
No,
in this document.
Because it has uptown, midtown, and downtown, right?
Yeah, they do.
So I think you're right, Harry.
I think it's just geography.
We can call it Lowtown.
Well, it's the business district in those areas, so
Yeah, but
they're
I think
indicating
each
that
of those
it's...
areas has a business district, and
Right.
to some extent the whole street is a business district, but I don't think they intend to say that the cultural center of their city is in the downtown specifically as opposed to the uptown.
I'm just commenting that it's labeled as an important location to them in their city. It's highlighted as being different, and it does abut, Albany, and I would echo the concern that we have, communication with them about how they're treating that. I wasn't able to read all 338 pages. Sure. I was just looking at the maps, actually trying to understand what they were doing with the Creekside. But the way that they're looking at that, even as it goes along Central, and along Pierce, it's, definitely an important area to them that they have focus on. And I think all of those things have, all of that abuts Albany, and it will have repercussions in Albany. I guess one question I have is how much do we know? This is a question for staff. I mean, how often would we go to their Traffic and Safety Commission when they're talking about things like this? Does that happen? Should that happen?
I've never been to one, to be honest with you. I don't know if Aleda has.
When we were doing the wayfinding, I attended one.
One?
Mm-hmm.
Because I would think the way we pattern reviews of things, that their traffic and safety must have reviewed at least the Creekside project at some point. And I guess I just need to be looking at that. I mean, there's nothing that prevents us from going, I would think. Maybe not as a traffic and safety commissioner. I guess I'm looking to you
When you
for
say us,
guidance.
do you mean us on the commission?
I want to ask that, yeah, as a commissioner.
Absolutely,
do you go?
you can attend any. You should, if you see something as a private citizen, you certainly can go. And as often happens with people speaking to you, they'll say, I'm a member of such and such, but I'm here representing myself this evening. Here are my comments.
Okay.
And then, for that matter, you could do that and then report back to the commission and at our commission. At the next meeting, and then that might start a dialogue or some communication or something, if there's an issue that you think needs attention.
How does their plan for bicycle access at the southern end of their project coordinate with our plan for bike lanes at the northern end of our project, if you put the two complete streets plans side to side.
It's not entirely clear, and I think their plan is more, I've seen the word, but kind of conceptual. Our complete streets plan really tried to map out block by block almost where the bike lanes would be. They don't have a similar kind of graphic on.
I thought when I looked at the plan, it seemed like they did, and that they had rejected putting bike lanes on the southernmost part of San Pablo in their project, except maybe in the extreme kind of pro-alternative transit version, which they weren't really recommending, which they considered to be a long shot. And I mean, my recollection of our project was that we said we can't really manage bike lanes through most of town, but El Cerrito can because they have a wider street. So when we get toward El Cerrito, we should open up and put in the bike lanes because it'll connect with the bike lanes that we know are going to be in El Cerrito soon. And then when I looked at this, it seemed like they don't have bike lanes right at the beginning, at the southern end of their project, so that makes our bike lanes kind of pointless.
Well, I think they have a combination of different treatments.
Right, but
and so do we.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at what we have at the northernmost end of our project and what they have at the southernmost end of theirs, and they don't seem to me to fit together.
On their complete streets, they show a Class 3 bicycle route with sharrows right above Albany, moving to I think that color is for a one-way cycle track on San Pablo.
It's a super sharrow, essentially. It's what we're doing on the parts of San Pablo that will not have bike lanes.
They do, if you note, they have the bus bulb out.
Yes.
And they do show a bike boulevard along, what is it in there? Is that Kearney? Or that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think they have some good treatments. I'm not saying they're ignoring the needs of bicyclists. I'm just saying that I don't think that their proposal meshes well with ours right at that junction.
But aren't we much further along than they are? Aren't we further along in our plan than they are?
Yes, we've completed the study. Theirs is in draft form. I don't know if they have any money to do any of these things, any more money than we do to do them.
Well, they applied for the ATP.
Did they put for the-
Yeah, they applied for the ATP grant.
To do all this?
That's my understanding. To continue with the plans and to do everything.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure it's exactly where Susan was going, but it just kind of occurred to me that would it be just too out of the norm for us at some point to invite their traffic commission to meet jointly with us to talk about some of these border issues? I mean, I don't know that any commission's ever reached out to another city, but could we do that?
That'd be kind of a cool idea.
I think we're small enough that it's compelling to us because our part of San Pablo is just so not that big. So how we interact with El Cerrito is really important percentage-wise to us, whereas for a lot of the other towns and including El Cerrito, we're not as significant, but it's very important to us. So could we be creative? Is there anything legally preventing us from doing things like that?
No, not at all. We would just notice it as the Brown Act wouldn't be, we'd take care of the Brown Act stuff.
Okay.
You could absolutely do that, and it would be an interesting and innovative idea.
If we could compel them to do it.
Yeah, and I think what I remember reading, I'm sorry, I'm just not, but I think they do have also, like, we did have options for their design on San Pablo Avenue as well. They do have options, not only one, but I mean.
Okay, I guess I interpreted the document as laying out one of the options as the kind of mainstream plan and the others as just pie in the sky ideas.
Pie in the sky.
I don't know. Do we need to have public comment on this?
I was just about to propose that we ask if anybody was interested in speaking to this issue. Great.
Thank you for continuing on after that rather lengthy previous agenda item. Preston Jordan from Albany Strollers and Rollers. So my read of the document was the same, that it was Super Sharrows south of Lincoln. So from Lincoln to the southern El Cerrito border is their preferred alternative of Super Sharrows. Whereas we had in our complete streets plan, I think lanes in the northern block or 2 blocks. And so it really wouldn't make that much sense if they're going to do this Super Sharrows to then go from Super Sharrows to bike lanes for 2 blocks, then back to Super Sharrows. It just isn't articulated that fantastically. So yeah, I think it's something to bring up in terms of disconnect. Looking at the street section, it doesn't look like, well, just like Albany, there's no room for bike lanes unless you take parking off one side, which is how Albany's complete street plan got bike lanes into those 2 blocks based on the parking occupancy survey in that area. So I guess it could be something to be brought up with them, but my sense is that that part of El Cerrito has higher parking occupancy, so that taking parking off one side is not really going to be that feasible. Also, they have median, well, actually, they have medians in part of that section, not all of that section, but they have medians in part of that section south of Lincoln, and so it's not as simple as it is for us. If we get rid of parking on one side, you can just shift the stripes around. It'd be far more complicated for them. Another aspect that I noticed that Director Bond alluded to was that while they have a list of a number of predecessor documents that were considered in putting together this specific plan, they don't have the Cerrito Creek Connector Trail master plan as one of those documents, which was passed in 2000. And that's, I'd say, a little frustrating because that was a joint project between Richmond, El Cerrito, and Albany. I think Albany had the lead. It was a grant from ABAG because it's a Bay Trail spur. So they really need to incorporate that into this specific plan. And I think that's particularly germane to your previous item because the way that project was approved, the way they have Evelyn wrapping around the project will in some way sever that trail, which they kind of agreed to in concept among the joint cities. So I think you need to push and say, we still expect that to happen, and we don't know why you didn't include that in the planning context for this particular document. As far as going to El Cerrito, I know when the Plaza Housing was being considered, a number of residents and neighbors in the area went to their planning commission meetings and to their city council meetings. Director Bond's predecessor, Director Cheney, went a number of times and spoke. So yeah, it's something that happens when the need is there. It can be hard to follow another city's agenda and recognize that something needs to go on, but this went on long enough that it did happen. So, and I'm just kind of outside your domain, but I'm certainly excited about the form-based code. I first learned about that 20 years ago, and it's one of the first places I've seen it in this area being proposed. And interestingly, the Plaza Housing would not meet their form-based code. If they had adopted it, it's going to shade the greenway, even though the EIR says it wouldn't shade the greenway, it would shade the greenway in the way that their form-based code said as it shouldn't. As they say, it has a parking garage at the ground level, which their form-based code says the parking should be internal to the building. So I guess that's a way to say if they adopt this, at least we won't get something like that happening again. Thanks.
If it's true that our complete streets is farther along than theirs and that ours is proposing these bike lanes, I would hate to see us start building those bike lanes and then realize that they don't make any sense there. And I would hate to see us remove parking that may have some value and that our process decided, in this case, the value of the bike lanes outweighs the value of the parking. But if the bike lanes are going to have no value because of what El Cerrito is doing, then the value of the parking comes back to the front, and that's what we should keep.
Are we going to send comments from this meeting to them?
We certainly can.
Because we can suggest, we were understanding when we were doing our complete streets, was that they had a wider right of way and they were going to implement the bike lanes, and we didn't because of that. It seems to me that there is might not be the ideal, but I don't recall, Jeff, what is the lane width on San Pablo Avenue? 11 feet there?
They have 11 ORs? Theirs is 11 feet in all 4 lanes and a 10-foot parking/bus, what they call parking/bus platform. Well, the bus bulb out. They call it bus platform. So they have, and then interestingly enough, they have 14-foot and 20-foot sidewalks, which is way more than what we were talking about. I don't know if those are existing or not.
Then when we want to clarify that, and that's the space that they can use some bike lane and keep their parking.
Yeah, I mean, I think their document said they rejected bike lanes in the downtown zone because they didn't feel that they could remove any parking. And we can sympathize with that. We did the same thing in our central area. But if they could achieve it by cutting into the sidewalk width, I don't know that they'd want to do that, but it's a possibility.
Well, I see a lot of space between the 3 grades and the curb, which might be, if they shorten that space, then we have enough for a bike lane.
But that's much more expensive to build, right?
Well, this is a clarification, if that's the actual curve line, or is it something that is proposed by this project? So we need to clarify that.
Okay.
The sidewalk's more expensive than the pavement, so actually a wide sidewalk makes the project more expensive.
And moving the curb doesn't add so much.
Moving the curb really gets expensive.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Clarify right now, if this sidewalk that you see there is the actual sidewalk that they have right now, then, and that's something maybe it's in a document like existing and being proposed.
How much detail can we get? Can we fly a drone over and get real-time footage?
It's dark out there right now.
I don't know where they got that.
Moving on.
That's about 1733.
Anyhow, we'll keep on working on this. Please let us know if you see it. It is a complex document, so if you see anything that we've missed, please let us know, and we'll try to. And I'll talk to Melanie Mintz, who's the Community Development Director in El Cerrito, and suggest that maybe we do try to have a joint meeting, and whether it's focused on this or just things in general, that might be a good exercise for us to have.
Director Bond, it's a great idea. If that were to happen, would that be a public forum?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Unless we have anything else on this, I think we'll move on to the item number C, the 20-minute parking request on the south side of the 1550 block of Solano Avenue.
We have received a request to convert one of the existing parking spaces on that block on the south side to 20-minute parking, or, we have 90 minutes to 20-minute parking to facilitate takeouts for food and other short time businesses that people might go to that block for. I actually went, just to let you know that on the south side of that block, there is a 20-minute parking already. So it's in front of the Mexican restaurant, I think, more or less. There's a 20-minute parking lot by the corner.
On the north side?
On the north side, yeah. And but I actually talked to several business owners on the south side, and some people were not concerned. They said, "Here, the person from who's the owner of the wine cellar at the intersection of is that Nielsen or something like that? Maybe, I don't remember. So it's Solano. It's by Solano and
Solano Cellars.
Yeah, the wine cellar there, the Solano Cellars. Yeah.
Solano Cellars. Yeah.
They say that they would like to have a short-term parking spot because some people just go, select their wine, buy, and then leave, and then sometimes a customer was there that listened to the request, or to my conversation with the owner, and she said, "Yeah, many times I've come here, and because there's no parking, I just go to Bevmo." So it's like, okay, so the 20-minute parking will benefit some businesses that, depending on the character of the business. The block is very, it's 100% occupied during lunchtime and at dinner time. Mm-hmm. So that's one observation, but it seems that people look for parking around the block, and the 20-minute for dinner might not be an issue because it ends at about 6 p.m.
The 20-minute range is to 6 p.m.?
8 to 6 p.m.
So you're saying that putting in a 20-minute zone wouldn't affect the dinner hour because we aren't proposing to do any 20-minute zones after 6 p.m.
Right, so people can park there for as long as they have dinner.
Yeah.
And it's Saturday and not Sunday, right?
Sunday is not enforced.
Right. I believe this is one of the blocks that we talked about putting in parking for disabled people. Does this impact that plan?
And we have, and one thing is that the crew actually put the disabled parking, but then they didn't decrease the existing red. So there is an area for van accessible that they actually hatch mark before the driveway. So one idea was to basically do what we have done on the other blocks, which is just take advantage of the existing driveway without hatching, and actually move the parking closer to the driveway, and in that way we wouldn't be decreasing the number of parking the parking stalls that we already have there. So because there is enough space to actually accommodate another parking by Cugini's. So we haven't, the idea what we had with the disabled parking was to use the long red zone.
Right.
And you're saying now that you could accommodate both the handicap and squish another, maybe a 20-minute there?
So you're saying there's room to add 2 parking spaces that were formerly red and make one of them be blue and one of them be green?
Yeah.
Okay.
One, right now, it would be just adding one. I don't think, and actually, I don't think that the blue parking was added into the red zone. I think it was converted from one of the 90-minute parking into the blue. So it will be adding one.
Okay, so the existing change that we already approved does take one regular parking space and convert it to a disabled, but the change that you're proposing now doesn't remove, it doesn't remove any regular parking, it adds a new space that would be temporary. 20 minutes.
I like that idea.
Any other questions?
No, let's do it.
Public comment? Opinions?
I personally, that is an area that I have to drive around the block sometimes when I, when I'm just, there are some things you can pick up on that block. There's a business where you can pick up lunch on that block. There's no seating at all. And to be able to access that, actually, I've been trying to buy business lunch, so a big order, I have to drive around and around the block. That's happened to me like 2 or 3 times. So that particular area seems to be kind of our busiest part of our downtown, in my experience. I would think that having a 20-minute slot that we actually don't even have to take another space for, I could see the validity of that.
If it's truly such a busy area, that seems like an opportunity to implement a better parking system instead of just trying to slip in one extra thing that will benefit a few people. We could try to benefit everybody with a...
We're working on the parking management with Alameda County. The request for proposals is already out. And I think in August, we're going to have the interview for with the consultants and selection August, September. We're going to have a study pretty soon.
Okay.
Now my next homework is to review the scope that I sent for Keynes and Adams. So, and send comments back to Cara Buick at Alameda County just for the next release of a request for proposals for that particular study.
And keep in mind that the opposite side of the street is Berkeley. So we only have the south side to think about.
Oh.
Yeah, that's true. That makes it a tricky spot. If we were to paint this temporary zone, this 20-minute zone now, and sometime later decide that we want a more comprehensive approach to parking management, is there any reason we couldn't undo that and integrate it into the managed parking?
No, it's only paint. We can paint whatever color, except,
It's a sign, right?
Yeah. Are there other green zones like that in Albany? Is there one in front of
Couple
the
on
YMCA or
Solano,
something?
we have a special request, like in this case. I think there is a
The
in the
YMCA.
1442, something like that, in front of the. There is an Indo-Nepalese restaurant by a. Next to it is also a laundromat.
Oh, yeah, at Santa Fe.
Santa Fe, yeah, that's right.
Kathmandu restaurant. So there's a 20-minute zone?
Yeah, and it was brought up through this commission.
In front of the post office is 20 minutes, and across the street in front of Copy Express is 20 minutes.
So are those heavily enforced, or do we just expect people to respect?
No, I got a ticket today because I was making the copies for the grant application, $50, because our printers are not fast enough, or maybe I was too late to actually print on the slow printers that we have here. I mean, actually here they have a very nice printer, but at Public Works we have, seems nice, it seems like top of the line, but it takes forever to print. So it got a ticket, so it's in force. Sure.
That's not right. It's right. It is
Okay,
right.
does-
It's right.
Does somebody want to make a motion?
I'll do it. I'll move that we install 20-minute parking in the, I don't know what it is, is it
1550.
1550 block of Solano?
But the motion shouldn't say that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't.
No, that's right, it's in front of,
I think the motion can stand it. install a 20-minute parking place on the south side of Solano in the 1550 block.
In an area that.
Adjacent
was-
to the,
An area
to
that
the
was
handicap.
formerly a no parking zone.
Along south side of the block.
Yeah, my motion said the south side.
I can second.
You're slow on the uptake.
What? Did you
Never
call?
mind. No. Any discussion?
And I can't.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, now, item, you're going to say, DC.
Right.
Yeah, so it's add-on options for the Marine Curtis Safe Routes School project. I want to bring this back because I had, after the last discussion, your motion was to add on either 1 or 2 raised crosswalks. And there was some discussion about the Sonoma being a bicycle facility, and also having to go twice if they want to turn right onto Curtis, having to go twice over the hump. Plus, we do have one thing is that we're going to have bulb outs. The problem at Sonoma and Curtis is the right turns, the fast turns there, and then. But the bulb outs with the tighter radius will actually solve that problem. So, one option is, it's to have a crosswalk across Curtis leading to the school that is raised, or have a complete raised intersection. And I think I put on the agenda some pictures about the raised intersection as an add-on. Of course, it's a little bit more costly, but I think the raised intersection option would be safer for the kids there. So, but as I said, the raised crosswalk also is an idea. It only affects Curtis in the intersection with Sonoma, but the raised crosswalk will actually, and with different texture, will actually make the pedestrians stand up more.
Did you get the email I sent you today?
And I'm going to show the plans, and I'm going to show some pictures that Commissioner McQuaid sent in terms of crosswalks that use paint, and those can be raised too, but I mean, I'll show you to you right now. So.
Okay.
Can I jump in later with my thought? It occurred to me that this project gets public art money, and I was trying to think about the raised crosswalks and how we could fund them, and I thought, what if we made the raised crosswalks the public art and used public art funds to pay for them? Obviously, the Arts Committee would have to agree with this, and the council, because it's spending public art money. So I sent Aleda just some examples, and if you go to Google Images and look at crosswalks, there's a million wonderful kinds. But the two I have for her, one's in Oakland in the Fruitvale District, and one is at the Monterey Aquarium. And I just thought this might be a way to fund this and get crosswalks that are impactful and will make the kids safer, and that would sort of add to the, I'm not sure how to describe it, but make the intersection more attractive.
Well, and the art, we've talked about using the art as traffic calming.
Right.
Before.
It sort of is
It's
a piece
along
of
that
that.
same idea.
I also have a flash drive if that helps.
The pictures that I just did before it came, but
That's the Monterey Bay Aquarium. But, we have the creeks, and I've always wanted to try to tie that into our streets.
yeah, This is not raised. This is
Right,
just
but
been-
it could be raised.
Yes, we have 10 feet of flat, the flat area is. So the next drawing, the next photo and this is just a detail of the crosswalk.
And these are the ones that are in the Fruitvale District in Oakland? Why are they so big?
That's the detail that I think you showed as a close-up here.
Right, exactly. And I'm not sure what that material is, but they've been there for a while now, and that's a fairly heavy car traffic, so people are going over them all the time, and they still look pretty good. So whatever that is, it certainly holds up well.
And, I think it's stamped asphalt.
And the color?
And the color,
is
it's color
painted?
asphalt too.
It's colored asphalt.
You have to
so
color it,
looks-
otherwise it will fade.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Public comment? Yeah, I appreciate staff raising the concern about having to raise crosswalks at 90 degrees for cyclists going around. I hadn't really caught that or thought about that, but I think that would be potentially kind of awkward going up and down and whatnot. So I think if it is going to be raised, I think the raised intersection or what's sometimes, kind of an even larger speed table makes sense. And I think the public art idea is great. I think it's a great place to roll that out. Thanks.
This is a raised intersection, a picture of a raised intersection. Also has different texture in the middle, but we can actually have some kind of art also on the top. So the possibilities might be a little bit endless, so a little bit more costly, but if we do it right, it might be the range of is about from the race intersection. I think is $50,000 to $125,000 or $130,000 from surveys across the United States. The race crosswalks is about. It was actually here. Well, this is another race intersection. It's race crosswalks might be between $15,000 and $35,000 or something like that. So it's not cheap either. But if we do two of them, it would be better to raise the whole intersection.
I think the raised intersection takes us a little bit into the realm of a shared street in that little quadrangle where children will probably be crossing from the southeast corner to the northwest corner, just walking along that whole raised platform as if it's a fine zone for pedestrians. They don't have to follow the specific stripes of the crosswalks. And I think the lessons of the shared street movement suggest that cars just drive more carefully in places like that. And it's better not to try to give people specific pathways to follow and expect them all to follow the rules, but instead let people go where they will and let people pay attention. And so if it can be pulled off, I think it's a wonderful precedent to set that we can take a little bit of street space and have it be shared like that.
So the other thing that plan that I have is a plan that Siegfried, one of the sub-consultant to this on this project did in San Carlos. This project is not built yet, but is basically one of the options that we discussed last time. Here, this is the raised crosswalk, except that we don't have, now we eliminated this. And let's assume this is Sonoma, and this is Curtis, and this is the school. So we don't have this four-way intersection, it's only a T intersection without this crosswalk. But the raised crosswalk would be around here, leading the students to the school. So that's something that they say they did for the cost of this raised crosswalk with drainage and everything is about between $25,000 and $30,000. So only this. If we're going to do two, the other idea was to have another one. Well, there is a drainage issue here too, so that might take 30 to 35 because of the curve work that we have to do here. So it's almost the cost of the race intersection. So what would be the add-on with this new information? What I wanted to basically bring back to council is what is the add-on project? What would be the add-ons considerations for council to make a decision?
Can I just make a comment about, Harry, what you said? I think the idea is really good. It would be kind of a pilot project as far as the raised intersection. And it makes me really nervous to do that at a school where it's so different and sort of unleashing little kids to get across the street at will. I think it's scary, and maybe I'm just not understanding it. But I mean, I understand the part about the cars have to be careful and all that, but it just makes me really nervous, to be frank about it. So help me out. Help me have it make more sense.
Well, I haven't experienced it, so I can't tell you that it works great, but I can tell you that what I've read and seen on YouTube about it is that especially in Europe, where this is much more common, they just don't have sidewalks and bike lanes and things like that. They're on slow speed residential neighborhoods. They just have streets where everybody's out doing their thing and the cars go through and they kind of find their way. And it's a radical idea that is not used in the United States, but in Europe it's considered common and safe and friendly. And
I don't think I want to pilot it at an elementary school.
Understandable.
They still have the stop signs, and we can have the stop legends on the pavement.
Yeah, it's more a matter of how, after you stop, how do you drive through the intersection? Do you feel that once you've stopped and checked for traffic, then it's your business to just go, hit the gas and go? Or is it your business to kind of work your way through this interesting feature? And when you get down off the other side of it and you're back on the street, that's when you hit the gas and go. So I think I guess it's maybe a little bit like the discussion we had about the back-in parking along Memorial Park. We like the idea. We'd like to pilot it. Maybe this isn't the right place for it. I'd hate for that to be our instinctive response whenever anything new comes up. But
I might not be understanding it all the way, but is it that if we're going to raise two crosswalks, dollar-wise, it would be the same as raising the whole intersection, but how you paint it and how you sign it could still indicate that there's an area for you to cross. Is that not true? Or are you just saying it is a free-for-all? And
well, we can sign it. We can cross it. We can have crosswalks right at the intersection. Are you talking about the race intersection?
Right.
Yeah, we can have areas where to cross that are already raised, that will be treated similar to this raised crosswalk here, but
the whole.
But it would be
the whole thing, because
the whole thing
structure-
is I'd suggest one thing is to have this painting that you sent around here and this one. If you on the east leg, if we wanted to do this concept of raising
Just
raised
one,
crosswalks.
Raise one and then paint the
Raise
other,
this
or-
one here, on Curtis, and then on the east leg, we have a paint, or we can paint both, but we have one of those painted ones. Like for an add-on. But then we don't have a crosswalk here, so this and these are, that's not our plans, you know. So our plans this is a T intersection with no crosswalk here, and only these crosswalks around here. There was a comment of a gentleman who lives, I think, around here in this house, and he was questioning why we eliminated this. And then we said it's because the consultants actually said it's because cars stop here and then continue very fast, and they get impatient when kids cross on this crosswalk as well, because they're crossing at 2. And you have observed that, Ken, seems. So the raised intersection would eliminate that, and also this raised crosswalk, maybe at half the cost, let's say that. An option is just to have this add-on with the paint.
So your suggestion for the raised intersection is to raise the whole intersection, but still use striping to indicate what path pedestrians are supposed to take?
Which is basically
and
right.
would we have striping for that that southern crossing of Curtis, or not?
Well, we might, because the raised intersection eliminates that darting onto the intersection, and you know.
I mean, I guess I would support the raised intersection if it promotes more freedom of movement for the pedestrians in a safe way. But if people are still going to be corralled into following a particular path through a particular set of stripes, then I don't really think the raised intersection is doing us that much good.
One of the reasons the south crossing of Curtis was removed was so the stop could actually be moved closer to the opposite side. So and the bulb out was changed in order to make that possible as well. So and the goal there is to have less distance between people stopping and the students crossing, because there's a timing issue that gets kids in trouble.
Well, I also think that being at a school, one of the things that you're teaching kids is how to cross the street safely. And if the intersection they're learning on is a free-for-all, but no other intersection in town is, are you sending the kids a mixed message?
I like the idea of raising one crosswalk and painting another.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good compromise.
Could we paint are we painting the one that's raised?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other one.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
So
good,
I move
yeah.
that we recommend to council that we use public art money to add on a raised crosswalk and a painted crosswalk.
A raised painted crosswalk and a painted crosswalk.
And a painted crosswalk.
Can
The
I?
Arts Council.
Yeah, the Arts Committee is going to need to weigh in probably before it goes to council, because,
We can't spend their money.
right. Which is,
This
We
goes,
could suggest,
this will go in
well, there you
September,
go.
so we
Well,
have to pass it through the Arts Committee, is that right?
well, there's a public art component to this project, and I think that the Arts Committee is going to need to weigh in whether they want that component used in this way. So I think that needs to happen, but what do I know?
Because
But Arts Committee meets the second Monday, so it conceivably could get to council on the third Monday
instead of the first, yeah, okay.
instead of the first Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody want to second my motion?
I'll second the motion.
Great. Further discussion?
Are you getting the Arts Committee in there somewhere, or are you going right to council?
I'm assuming that this has to go through the protocol.
Okay. So can you repeat your motion? I'm sorry.
Yeah, maybe that's better.
Okay. I move that we recommend to the Arts Commission and the council that there should be both a raised painted crosswalk and a painted crosswalk added to the project.
Be what, you said? There should be what, both? Raise?
Both a raised painted crosswalk across Curtis and a painted crosswalk across Sonoma.
And I second that again.
Thank you. Further comment?
I only have another question. Do we
Please.
give if not, do we give a second choice? I mean, if the Arts Commission
If
doesn't.
there's no art fund.
If there's no art fund, do we still want to raise with the paint, or do we want?
No, if there's no art fund, then we still, I think the painting is a great idea. I mean, I like it. Oh, I mean, I don't know, it's not because I like it, but I think it's a great idea, but it's you recommending. I think then it would be a matter of adding this cost to the request for the add-on.
Ah, okay.
So was there a previously approved plan to build 2 raised crosswalks, and do we have to cancel that now?
No, it was just a suggestion at the last meeting. And then I was thinking about it, and then so instead of 2 raised crosswalks, it would be better to have a raised
I
intersection.
understand. I just want to make sure that we are on the record as saying that we prefer 1 raised crosswalk to 2 after hearing your analysis. So do we need a separate statement to that effect, or is that already implied by what we've said?
It's in the.
Was that in the previous motion from the previous meeting? Did we approve the idea of 2 raised crosswalks? And if so, I would like to make a motion now to take that back, or
To modify that.
to modify that.
Okay. I think we approved it. I think there was a motion that said we recommend for moving forward to 100% plans with the add-on. Remember?
Okay, well, we currently have a motion on the floor,
Oh, yeah.
so we should probably vote on that
Okay.
first, and then you could make another motion.
Okay.
Any further discussion on the current motion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, so I move that we recommend a preference for 1 raised crosswalk rather than 2 as a possible add-on. Yeah. I move that we modify the recommendation from the previous meeting to indicate that we prefer 1 raised crosswalk across Curtis as an add-on rather than 2 raised crosswalks.
I'll second that. Sorry, Susan. Usurping your-
I'm happy to oblige.
Okay. Comment?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have public comment now?
Public request?
Just quickly, and I think these are probably just the same plans that were presented last time, but I don't know if it was commented last time that there was a desire on Strollers and Rollers' part to make sure that the asphalt demolition for the bulb outs on Marin, the joints are along the stripe between the bike lane and the travel lane. As it's drawn now, they kind of cut across at a shallow angle, which as the joint degrades could become a hazard for cyclists. So if the plans could be modified to reflect that when they go to 100% design, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, but was included in the, okay, so because I don't think that was I mean, we were commented, but it was not included in the motion. I don't think so. Last time, is that right?
I wasn't here last time,
Oh,
so I don't know what happened.
Yeah, we have a conversation with, yeah. And they understood that it was going to be, but if you want to put it in a motion right now, I can just tomorrow send it to the consultants too.
Well, let's make sure this gets done. Does somebody want to make a motion? You want to give it a shot?
Okay, I move that we request that the final plans should show the asphalt cut. See, I'm not as clear on exactly what's at issue here, so if someone else can say it, that would be better.
The asphalt cut joint is with the lines of the bike lane as opposed to through the bike lane, whenever possible.
Okay. I'll second that.
So can we make that be Ken's motion?
Discussion?
I second
Peggy
it.
seconded.
Sounds good to me.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Report on grant application for the MTC ATP Regional Call for Projects. So I submitted the previous grant application today for the Complete Streets Plan grant that I submitted to the statewide competition. Then I resubmit that for MTC, the regional competition, and also the Marine Avenue Safe Routes to School project, which is the medians between Cornell and Evelyn, and the bulb outs between Cornell and Evelyn, because the phase 3 only starts from Cornell to San Pablo. So now we're going to have, if we get the money, we're going to have medians from Cornell to Evelyn. Hopefully we get something.
Phase 4.
Phase 4. So that's the
Congratulations on getting that in.
right.
How
MTC
long does that last? How long does it take to get?
to do a grant?
No, well, no. I would like to know that, but how long will it take for them to?
Oh, they're
assign
going to
the-
decide soon. The state competition should be, right now, they should be, the project score, the scoring should be done by now, and then they will send those, the rankings to the different planning organizations, metropolitan planning organizations. In our case, it would be MTC. So MTC will score. So because MTC anticipates that jurisdictions will be submitting, again, duplicative projects that they submitted to the state competition in case they didn't make it, but we don't know yet. So they're submitted to the regional competition, and then we'll know which projects are under the state competition and which ones are on the waiting list, so they will take those into their ranking. So they will double rank, in other words. So hopefully we can make, my hope was that we make one cut at the state and then the other cut at the regional. So that's basically what, but it's a lot of projects from the whole, the statewide is 700 projects. From Los Angeles submitted 20, the city of Los Angeles.
So are there different values of the grant from the state to reach? I mean, like, is
Yeah,
there
they do
different amounts?
have different amounts of money and different criteria also to evaluate the projects. Right now, honestly, I can tell you that there's some like small urban areas, rural areas, projects, bicycle projects that have to do with the park district and in trails. Well, ITP projects, complete streets projects, and safe routes to school projects, because they have really merged 4 sources of funding, which is the bicycle transportation account, the safe routes to school, and some freedom monies that are with the trails, related with the trails. And and something else that I don't remember. But, the HSIP grant program, which is to reduce the likelihood of collisions, particularly at the intersections, and that's where the cost-benefit analysis actually came through, because that particular grant application requires cost-benefit analysis, so that's one of the major homeworks on these two grant applications is to calculate the cost-benefit analysis in 20-25 years into the future. So, but I'm here.
But you got it.
I think I missed something at the beginning. Was the grant that you applied for funding to design or to build a Safe Routes to School segment along?
The Safer School is for four components. It's design, environmental, construction, and non-infrastructure project, which is development of short safety videos in coordination with the high school and the city KALB program, the city KALB station to develop short safety videos for pedestrians, bicycle circulation, and drivers. We will actually, the idea is to feature these videos before the movies at the theaters here, even at the Hilltop theaters, because we want to capture people who come to Albany from other areas. The Rialto Cinema in El Cerrito, through the website, and what else? Community events, you name it. Wherever we can broadcast those, we will broadcast.
So the grant would be for the whole package from design through
Yeah.
completion? Wow. And the changes that you're describing to Marin Ave are a design that we haven't seen yet? Or-
You saw, I don't know if you saw it,
I'm not
it's
sure
on
if
the ATP, the Active
in-
Transportation Plan, and I can show you what it is.
Okay. Well, I can probably look that up later if you want, now that I know where it is.
Yeah, we might want to keep rolling along here.
Let's continue. Yeah, don't take the time to find it now. I'll look it up
I
later.
mean, if we're losing Preston,
Yeah. So that's basically, but I can show, there is a video that we did for the grant application, and unfortunately on the video I am the one talking, which I'm not the best presenter, but I try to make the case. The video is well done. I mean, it's professionally done, and it went with the grant application as well. Okay. Similar to the video that we did for Marine Elementary, and that they didn't accept because it was not part of the guidelines, but now we have 3 years later, they requested a video. And I think it was because of us. Really, I mean, I think so.
Could be.
I got an email saying that the video was really cute. Everybody enjoyed the video, but they couldn't accept it as part of the grant application. 3 years before, 3
We're
or 4 years.
leading edge out here in Albany. We're leading edge.
Well, the video wasn't leading edge,
pioneering.
but it was fun to make. It was cute.
We can actually, next time, maybe you can bring it. It was a very nice video.
It was fun.
Okay, next. Or any questions?
So are we moving on to F, or was that F also?
No, F is what I kind of like I mentioned a little bit before, that we are moving forward with the call for projects, request for proposals for the Alameda County Sustainable Communities Program for our parking study. And also for, I have to really review the scope for the Keynes and Adams project, so.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, what's the scope of the parking study? Is it Keynes and Adams?
No. The
Madison?
scope for parking study is the commercial district in Albany, and also the areas that are affected by the parking on the commercial district.
So that
So what does that mean?
Solano and San Pablo then?
Solano and San Pablo, and 2 blocks from Solano and San Pablo, and that's why I said earlier that we will include Keynes and Saanich.
Right, 2 blocks. So 2 blocks on either
On each
side?
side, yeah. I think on the south, on the west side, it's going to be a little bit more because parking, it goes from San Pablo Avenue, especially for the car shops, goes all the way to, close to Jackson, I think.
Well, and if you look at Solano on the eastern side,
Also Solano.
2 blocks would be all the way to Sonoma.
Solano on the eastern side. No, but for Solano it would be north and south.
Right, but if you go 2 blocks south of Solano, 1 block is Marin, and the next block would be Sonoma.
I think for Solano it's going to be one.
Yeah, that makes
or
more sense.
half a block, I think.
That makes more sense.
Okay. Anybody have any announcements?
I do. I sent you a letter from a bicyclist rider who was injured on the chicanes on Santa Fe Avenue by Ramona and Pomona, and he broke several parts of, hip and everything, and he said he knows of another bicycle rider who had an accident. So he was wondering, when are we going to remove those? And I explained the last decision that you guys made in regard of making the chicanes work with the delineation, the edge line, and that we're going to test that first, and then we're going to see if behavior has changed. He was very upset and said, no, it's changing right now. Eliminate them right now. It's not going to change. It's going to be bad. And I just gave him a little bit of background that they were implemented as part of the traffic management plan. It was approved. It's a huge planning effort approved by council in 2000 and implemented in 2001 or 2, I think. I don't know.
So have the edge lines been
No, I
completed?
haven't had time to, but I will do it.
I think he was saying that he wouldn't have seen them because he has no light, which, and none of this came up when we were talking about this the last time. I mean,
He said that, because I said it has reflectors, but his bicycle light, he had a bicycle light, but it was not strong enough to
do the
to do the reflectors. That's what he said. So usually it does work when there's a car behind you if you're riding, and then the light of the car actually makes the reflectors very visible. But for a very faint, or maybe his battery was dying, I don't know. I'm sorry, you want to say something?
I think we're getting a little off the agenda and getting
Yeah.
into too much discussion about chicanes. Although I personally would like to see them come back, so.
We're going to come back
As
with
soon
the
as we
design.
can get the painting done, then we can evaluate it. That would be good.
Okay, future agenda.
Can I just say one announcement thing? Just to remind people that Sunday from 1 to 4 is Safety Palooza in the parking lot here at City Hall. And I think that kind of ties into us with the MAD trailer and a few other things. There's some different things this year, so people should come and see what there is. But there's definitely exhibits that relate to traffic safety. And bicycle helmets. Okay.
Right, so we've got traffic calming and policy in school zones in October, Canes and Adams bicycle facility concept at some point, electric vehicle charging stations at some point, APD policy for citations. I did have a conversation with the chief.
Oh, okay.
And he says, let's just set a date and he'll come talk about that.
Oh, nice.
So maybe we can get him in September,
Okay.
because that's something you wouldn't have to work on. And we can get it on our agenda and get it taken care of.
I'm going to add the chicanes also that I didn't add here.
You sent an email in June about the Solano Avenue Hill coming over the top.
That's right. I sent another. That's another big.
So in the email you said that we would discuss it at the July meeting, but since we didn't, should we put that on for
that's
September?
correct. We should really put it there.
Do you want to see that email now, or? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay.
Do we maybe want to try to be good and work on our municipal code stuff during the break, and then
Yeah, if you,
report something
right,
back?
if we can do something, if we can meet, it'd be great. But it's been hard for, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody is,
But I think sort of an example was shown tonight that we kind of were like, well, the code isn't really what we want, or, so I think it's important to do it, and I think we kind of need to be made to do it, because obviously I'm not doing it like I should be, so.
I think a meeting would be the venue to do it. And start like attacking the document and, okay, let's see. It's the same thing with everything. But if we, sometimes if it's, I can say I can start, but there's always so many things to do, or I think if we commit at least an hour, like we did for the parking subcommittee that was formed between this committee and planning and zoning, and it was really good. So we came here, we worked on that, and it was good. So we should really do that. Do you want me to send you an invitation? Yeah, but you have to remind me, who else is on the municipal code? Farid is.
All of us. Farid and I are parking, Harry and I are administration, and the rest of you are on your own, I don't know.
I don't have the list with me.
I know, we need to get back.
Then I send an email to all of you, and then just with some time after August 11, because I'm going to be on vacation.
And I'm going to be on vacation August 11th. That's the only problem.
So you're coming back on August 11, or that's going to be your beginning? No, I'm coming back on August. How long are you going to be on vacation?
How do you not know that?
I can get it to you.
No, that's fine. How about a doodle calendar? People get their availability through that calendar, and then we can. Okay.
Sounds good.
And then.
Yeah, I'm going the next week, the 19th through the 22nd.
So you're back the 20th.
I'm not back until the week of the 25th, the week school starts.
And we need to add also all the tests that we're going to do for the Cerrito, for the Cerrito Plaza development. Okay, anything else?
I'll call the meeting adjourned.
All right.
We